from the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the SMOAK Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports with David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
Man, what a weekend. And a lot of what we had as we were kind of going through the morning, good afternoon, David Smoke with Craig Smoke, the SMOAK Show on 365 Sports and YouTube, was NFL draft related. And now we will start off with the story that hit a couple of hours ago. Craig Smoke, welcome back. On Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech quarterback, who is on leave, so to speak, as he has moved into a residential treatment center for what has been and what is a gambling investigation dating back to even 3 to 4 seasons ago.
Yeah, it's an absolutely huge story and completely out of nowhere. I think it's just kind of something that you're still trying to take in as a follower of Texas Tech or as a follower of college football. And what's up, everybody? Hope you had a good weekend. Shocking news coming out of Lubbock. And the big question now, I just fast forwarding, is does Brendan Sorsby play next year? And based on what we've seen previously with similar rulings or similar situations, Brendan Sorsby has a very good chance that he doesn't play at all for Texas Tech and does not play next season based on the fact that given some of these details, he bet on his own team in Indiana a few years ago. Now, I saw On3 reporting that he was betting like balls and strikes at some baseball games, and I don't think that matters at all, actually, to this story. But apparently he is somebody who's been deep into gambling to the point where it was uncovered. And like, again, there's still a lot of details that are missing from this, but he has decided to enter a treatment facility for gambling addiction, according to Texas Tech. There's statements that are out there, and he is going to get treatment for his gambling issue or addiction. I don't know if you want to describe it that way, but I think if you're heading to a treatment facility, that's probably a pretty apt way to describe it. And I guess reporting out there right now is, yeah, there was a little bit of that baseball stuff, but it says in the ESPN Pete Thamel article, thousands of online bets on a variety of sports via a gambling app. They are now investigating, as we mentioned, and Texas Tech says they're committed to supporting him, as we will, I'm sure, get deeper into as well. But yeah, it's a lot to take in, and it's definitely out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know if there was any indication on the Texas Tech message boards that there was something brewing, or if it even got to that point where anybody was really aware before today. But it's shocking, and now it's going to be all about what happens next. And I know some have kind of side-eyed the checking into treatment, because it's like, well, you're kind of trying to cover yourself now that you've had this become public. But either way, like, I just hope if he does have enough of an issue, which clearly he might, to need help, then, like, if it's alcohol or drugs or whatever, gambling addiction is a very real thing. And I hope that's legitimate and not just something that he's hoping will kind of not, I guess, allow people to be so over the top about their reaction to this, of like, hey, I got a problem, I'm trying to get it worked out. Be considerate about that. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It's a total game changer for the Big 12 next year, for Texas Tech football, and for college football on a national level as well.
Well, Will Hammond, of course, the young man from Hutto, is coming back from ACL. He started throwing. They do have the Tulsa quarterback that is a transfer too. But yeah, this story, I'm sitting there just kind of like, hey, I got a lot of stuff for us, for Craig and for me and for you to go over. And then all of a sudden I saw the notice, and I'm like, wow. Texas Tech's schedule allows them to maybe not need something early as far as like Brendan Sorsby, compared to what if, in fact, Will Hammond's cleared by then. But at the same time, it's a guy that's getting a lot of money, a huge NIL. He also, remember, is being sued for his money that he got from Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's already been reported on this afternoon that he and his lawyer have moved to get that dismissed. So in the same day that they are announcing that he's checking into some type of rehab to work on gambling addiction, they're also moving to get that Cincinnati situation taken care of. So very busy day for the Sorsby representatives. And I don't know where the Cincinnati lawsuit may go as far as the money he owes them, but clearly he's got a lot on his plate right now. That's for sure.
Here's a couple of notes from the Sorsby, and then Rez has got 5 or 6 different stories, images on the story, but one of them is this. Brendan Sorsby bet on Indiana games while he was on their roster. He was not playing. Student athletes who wager on their own games on other sports at their own schools at times, the NCAA has said, will face permanent loss of collegiate eligibility in all sports. So we've seen this before. It was Iowa. It was Iowa who had a player. In fact, what was it? Noah Shannon suspended by the NCAA for the entire season for wagering on Iowa women's basketball, not even his own sport. Things have not changed, but there have been. It's more knowledgeable. This is something that some have said this is going to get worse and worse. And now you've got a mega name that might affect the discussion a little bit. It shouldn't matter whether it's Brendan Sorsby, Noah Shannon, or Bill Jones. It should not matter. So there we are with part of the report with Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just pessimistic. I don't know how it really is going to change much of anything, because I don't think that the conferences are going to suddenly stop looking for gambling money. I don't think the sport's going to suddenly stop looking for gambling money. I mean, they're as at fault in pushing it to people like Brendan Sorsby as anybody. All these sports leagues, particularly at the professional level, we see Kalshi everywhere we look on every little thing known to man now. Is so-and-so going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch in the next year? Wager now. Like, I mean, literally anything and everything you want to predict or bet on is there to be predicted or bet on, and in the palm of your hand. And I mean, I'm just old enough to where I didn't have the experience where like everybody in high school or college, all my buddies were betting all the time. I knew a couple guys who did it before, and I guess they had bookies because it's still not fully legal here in Texas. So I know a couple guys that have for years been into it, but never was a part of the wave like it is now, where to hear some people spin the tale, like every single one of their high school age son and his friends all have bets going and all are real into it. I know some people over the years who, yeah, I mean, it's the only reason they watch sports is to bet on it, quite frankly. And every time you turn on a game, you're slapped in the face with another gambling ad of some sort. So, the industry has benefited greatly over the years from a lot of the legalization and spreading from state to state. Still not where they want to be, but it's been a massive boom for the industry. You're seeing MLB just signed with, I believe maybe it's Kalshi the other day or whoever it was. I mean, these deals are all over the place. So maybe Brendan Sorsby is a cautionary tale for somebody to just not bet on their own team, but I don't think it's going to slow or stop or really much change the gambling issues at hand in this country right now. And some people don't have an issue with it, but some people do. Does Brendan Sorsby have a legitimate issue, or is he caught and now he's got to do the thing to make it look like he has an issue, as opposed to, well, I knew what I was doing? Because that's just not a good look for him. I don't know. I hope if he's legit got an issue, then he gets the help that he needs and doesn't tank his career based on gambling on Cincinnati football or whatever else he got around to. But yeah, it's massive news because it directly affects where you place Tech in the big conversation, where you place them within the Big 12 conversation, where you place them within the CFP conversation, and then just him as a player, a guy who you could already start seeing in mock drafts for next year that is now probably not going to play based on what we know, probably not going to play college football his final season, based on precedent. Now, could Cody Campbell get some high-powered lawyers involved? Could things go differently? I suppose, but like based on what we do know, yeah, this is not good news for Brendan Sorsby, and therefore there's a massive domino effect.
Yeah, it's we'll play it, of course, as it goes. And right now it's like, oh, my God. But at the same time, this is a big name, the number one transfer portal player this past offseason. So it's a big deal, plus Tech because of what their goals might be. And Mike Craven, by the way, who did the tour of all of the college programs in the state of Texas, like 12 or 13 of them, he wrote something earlier today. It was like Okay, so who wants to help me redo the Texas Tech Brendan Sorsby story that he had already written, put to bed for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine? He will join us in about an hour. Texas Tech Athletics, here is a statement. Brendan Sorsby announced today that Sorsby will take an immediate timeline, announced today that he will take an immediate indefinite leave of absence from the football program to enter a residential treatment program for a gambling addiction. Meanwhile, Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire released his statement. We love Brendan and support his decision to seek professional help. Taking this step requires courage, and our primary focus is on him as a person. Our program is behind Brendan as he prioritizes his health. And then the NCAA, it's a longer statement. I won't read all of it, but they can't comment. They don't comment. It's confidentiality rules. But they are looking and going through the due diligence on what their stakeholders and also the investigation is going to be, and also what they find out too. So there we are with three different statements. And we don't know, did Sorsby do this because he knew the stories about the drop, or was this something that he needed to do this anyway? That's up for anyone to have their own opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the truth is there and when we'll learn that, if we'll ever really learn that. I just, like I said a few minutes ago, hope that if he does have an issue, which it appears that he might, that he gets it dealt with, and this isn't something that sidelines him beyond maybe this year, but sidelines his entire football career. And, yeah, there's still a massive amount of questions now on the field, off the field, for him, for Tech, for the greater picture of college football, because however you feel about Tech, they were very much in the conversation as far as one of the better teams heading into next year. So when you're looking at how many Big 12 teams you're predicting can maybe get into the playoff, or who the Big 12 champ and who's going to get the first round bye will be, I think probably most people are predicting that it's going to be Texas Tech, and rightfully so. I mean, the big weakness, if you will, at times, and we saw it at the end of the year, and you're going to have to just deal with me today, guys. I've got the worst allergies I think I've ever had in my entire life. I'm trying to plow through it, but just,
yeah, it's obvious.
It's like, it's, I don't know where it came from, but it's just so bad. I've never had this. It's like, I just woke up yesterday and suddenly was an allergies person. Never have been, but all right. Anyways, just saying, if I stumble a little bit, I'm doing my best. But
no,
it's hard
let's
to breathe.
be honest. Here's what happens when you have that. You have like things happening in your nose, in your throat, and you got it's sometimes you got to take a deep breath and swallow.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here picturing like the glisten of my nose as I'm trying to just get through this. But yeah, I think for him, a lot of questions. For Tech, a lot of questions. And I mean, we can go down avenues like who the backups are. Obviously, Will Hammond, but Will Hammond's not ready right now. And so are we looking at Lloyd Jones? I mean, what are we looking at as far as the plan from Joey McGuire? And overall, how are we determining Tech? But yeah, that was their big, I guess if you could say, glaring weakness coming out of the playoff run, was that they did not have adequate quarterback play in that Oregon game. And Baron Morton had some big moments for them throughout the season. But I think when you saw kind of that total package and said, okay, where can Texas Tech move themselves up another level? Where can they become more of an elite team? And you say, well, they go get a real like badass quarterback that's one of the best in the entire country. And Baron Morton got drafted this past weekend. He was super solid, but not quite the difference maker, game changer.
Got drafted this weekend, huh? Good.
That's what I just said. Yeah, he got drafted this weekend, so he's a good player. Like I said, but he's got a ceiling, and I think Brendan Sorsby is a guy that gives you a much higher ceiling. So now you pull him out of the mix, and what does that look like for Tech as a whole? There's just a lot of interesting questions coming off of this story, and we can speculate, but as much as it seems precedent's been set, until they actually say he's out for the year, we don't know. But it's a safe assumption. You just can't say with 100% certainty that that's the case.
All right. Now, the draft ended, and then there's a lot of storylines. We will have Eric Galko, who is the one who runs. He's the football operations for the East-West Shrine Bowl, and he has been on with us many times before to look back on maybe those who had the best draft as teams, maybe a surprise or two, and also, what happened to these 3 or 4 or 5 players, and we'll get to that ourselves. But so after the first round, The Big Ten had the most players drafted. The ACC and also the Big 12 had 6. The SEC had 7. And we mentioned that on Friday's show. And there was this, well, wait a minute, knowing that was the first round. In the end, they did it again for it seems like eternity. The SEC, look at this note from Front Office Sports, all of those years in a row, the most players drafted, which also makes you wonder, the last 3 years they have not won the national title. But that's about the top and bottom, and some programs more than others. The most players drafted in a conference in the draft, and they did it yet again and broke the record. Over 80 of their players were drafted.
Yeah, it's a streak that I don't know that we'll ever see broken. I mean, I'm sure at some point the Big Ten will have more, but yeah, it's a crazy streak that they've been on now for so many years, and there's a little bit of competition there, but it's really only the Big Ten. I mean, the Big 12 and the ACC are not threats to topple them as far as NFL picks go. So yeah, they may not have the recent national titles that they had there for a while. They may not have the most first rounders like they did for a really long time, but they've still got the most draft picks, and that's what a lot of SEC fans who were totally not bothered by people trolling them about the Big Ten thing. Not at all. No, we're not at all quick to rush and say, well, we'll see you at the end of the weekend. And they were right. Ultimately, they were right that the SEC had the most. But yeah, if they didn't, boy, that would be a fun reaction to see. I don't know that we ever will, because they're just so stocked with talent and so deep across the board. And I mean, all these draft records you see falling over the weekend, it's one thing when Texas Tech's having the most they've ever had. And sure, you can attribute that to the NIL era as much as anything, along with the culture and the investments and things like that. But we saw a lot of, this is the most record, this is the most record, this is the most record for, like, in general. It's like, yeah, everybody's got more teams. Like the SEC's got Texas and Oklahoma adding draft picks.
There used to be 12 teams. Now there's 16 and 18 and 19.
Yeah, they didn't lose anybody. So the Big 12, I think, had a really respectable weekend overall. They actually lost Oklahoma and Texas, who, depending on the year, provided a pretty good size. But I thought Arizona had a good pocket of names. Arizona State did as well. Utah did as well, among others. And who am I forgetting there? Colorado, not as much, but yeah, I think everybody's. It's like we're seeing with the TV ratings now. I'm hesitant to just be like, wow, that's such a crazy stat. It's the most. Well, yeah, everything's the most ever right now because we've changed the way we rate TV shows. So for live sports, that's been beneficial. The draft, we've completely reconfigured the conferences. So yeah, imagine that the Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC has added to their stacks of already pretty thick list of draft picks, and that will probably remain the case for a while. But I mean, if more teams join the likes of Indiana and start putting players out up in the Big Ten, like Oregon and Ohio State and Michigan have for a while, then maybe they'll give them a run for their money one day. But I think they're going to need a couple more programs to have not like an Indiana Natty run, but really boost themselves to try and compete for that type of a title.
Here's the actual list of the conferences. We won't spend a lot of time on this because we just discussed it. But the SEC had 87. That's a record. Big Ten, then the ACC, and also Big 12. And then there's the Notre Dame, which is their own conference, down to even an international player picked by Philadelphia. 231 of the 257 draft picks were a part of a Power 4 program. Now, having said that, how many of the players who were drafted, no matter the conference, but how many of the players, it does break it down in the conference. I saw this pretty interesting note. Here's a graph of what players did. The green means a conference that gained players that were drafted. The red means a conference that, lost players that were drafted by somebody else. The SEC had a gain of 33 of their draft picks were on other teams before. The Big 10, 12. The Big 12, 12. The ACC right there in the middle is like plus or minus 0. And then, of course, the group of 5, now group of 6, lost 23. The FCS D2 and also NIL lost 17. And junior college lost 13 players who were drafted that were once a part of what they are at the time right now. Here's another note about transfers, Craig. Let me ask you this. 35 of the 68 day 2 picks, 35 of 68, which is half, 51%, were transfers. transfers. 46 of the top 100 picks were transfers. That's not a surprise to me, but I really did not know the number. But it's just kind of showing now how much of a change it's put when it comes to programs filling the NFL and also where they come from.
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking about with the SEC, I think wasn't even taking into account the transfer portal, but you add that into the mix, and yeah, they and the Big Ten are going to be riding high for a really long while and always be churning out draft picks to the detriment of a lot of other schools out there. And the Big 12s and the ACC are going to, from time to time, get their picks as well. But it's a really tough time to be a fan of a smaller school. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to stay in the fight no matter what, and they're never going to stop supporting or caring. But you're really being pushed to your limits, I think, when you look at just access in general. But now your best players, I mean, we've kind of known this for a while, but now it's really showing in the draft that your best players are just going to get poached left and right, and they're going to be counting for the SEC's or Big Tens or ACC's stack of draft picks by the end of their careers. And there's not really much you can do about that. There's not anything outside of some booster hitting the mega millions or something and really wanting to help support your football program that's going to change that. Guys want the best opportunities and the biggest money offers and the biggest, brightest lights. And that's just something that the Ohio States and Michigans of the world and the UTs and the Alabamas are going to have over Coastal Carolina and James Madison and whoever. And there will be instances where guys still stick around there. They won't be totally without. But, yeah, you're seeing where the transfer portal, all the money exchanging hands and everything like that is just making the rich richer, like everything else in this world, basically. It trickles up. And to the detriment of the normal conferences that aren't the top of the food chain. And, yeah, that sucks, man. I don't know where that ultimately goes. I don't know how much they get choked out on picks, but it was definitely notable just how many of these picks are now very much portioned off into like 4 or 5 leagues versus how spread out it was. And the SEC always had high totals, and so did the Big Ten, but not to the extent that it is now. I mean, now it's like, yeah, they just, if you're a talented player, then you're probably getting poached and you're probably getting picked up by a bigger school before your career's over with. And then they're going to get the ability to have their name next to you when you get called for the NFL draft, not the original school.
And here's notes on what you just said to just back it up even more. 48% of all draft picks were transfers. The total went from 82 a year ago to 123, including the number 1 overall pick and Heisman winner Fernando Mendoza from Indiana was at Cal. Texas Tech 8, Indiana 7 led the way this year with the most transfers who were also then drafted, which you could say whatever you want about NIL and all the money. You not everybody who gets a transfer, do they end up being a starter, much less being a guy or a player that ends up in the NFL. So they've gone out, they've said, okay, we're going to go get these guys. And both of those teams who had tremendous years, obviously Indiana, unbelievable year, they and Tech, their first title in the Big 12, they didn't just go buy players. They also got players that were a fit that could help and were good. And it turned out that they also are now a part of the NFL.
Yeah, but I mean, David Baylor was going to the NFL regardless. I mean, he was already kind of pegged for that. So yeah, you still have to develop them and have the culture, but they went and got the best of the best that were all going to be, whether they had gone there to LSU, going to be in the Lee Hunter, if he had stayed at UCF's getting drafted, right? Like, I mean, they went and got some really good players, but they deserve credit for making the pieces work because that doesn't always happen. So their payoff was the incredible run and a record number of draft picks and a bunch of teams with record number of draft picks. And you still got to be able to develop guys, but it is much easier to set those types of records when you can go get the best players in a free agency style era that we're in right now. So yeah, Tech has benefited from it, but they've done it a little bit of both. I mean, not only transfers, but also homegrown guys like a Baron Morton, for example. So there's still a balance to be had there, but there's no balance as far as the big schools versus the small schools anymore. I mean, there you could say, well, there never really was to begin with. Yeah, but there were still guys getting drafted at those schools because they weren't leaving left and right. And now you're seeing like this year where it's just very, very much going one direction.
Yeah, you're right about Lee Hunter. You're right about David Bailey. I wonder where Fernando Mendoza might have been drafted had he stayed at Cal. We don't know that. And oh, by the way, one of the reasons you get in the portal is for a couple of reasons. You want a better opportunity to improve yourself. You want money, and you also want playing time. Maybe all three that combine into one. So that is also in some cases where guys, obviously, being a part of Signetti and Indiana, that deal, that's a big deal. And Josh Hoover's hoping that he can take advantage of that with Signetti in Indiana this year.
Yeah, I think, not all transfers are moving up, though, because they can be from Colorado to Oklahoma State or from Oklahoma State to Texas Tech or whatever. So you're not necessarily seeing everybody go from Air Force to Ohio State. It's not all like that, but they are not going from the P4, typically the draft picks, to the G6 or the G5. They're not going in that direction. The guys that are going that direction are normally the guys who are looking for playing time and aren't as wanted on their bigger stage. And so, yeah, there's definitely a direction this is going where it's benefiting the bigger schools, and no reason to believe that's going to change now or ever at this point. But yeah, you still got to be able to develop. You can't just hire a bunch of hired guns and expect to win. And even then, there's still wild cards like this Brendan Sorsby situation, right? Like, you just never know. So whether you get the talent or not, it's great to have it, but you got to be able to work with it. And Texas Tech's done that to a successful degree so far, and you saw the payoff for them this weekend.
Here are the schools, and we got 2 or 3 more NFL notes in the draft, and then we're going to move on to some college football business. We'll have Eric Galco on the draft with some ideas and questions you have for Eric. Put them in the chat room, but tag me. Make sure you tag my name so I also see them. Ohio State with 11 players, A&M and Alabama. The only ones on this list that you might go, well, obviously Indiana's made the jump. There's Texas Tech. We know they made the jump, and a couple of others. But there's Tech and Clemson, Miami, Indiana. These are teams that were either in the playoff or in a position to be in the playoff. Next year, Texas might have 4 first-round picks, maybe 5. They ended up, even though not a lot of players early on, ended up with 6 players along with Notre Dame, Missouri. You see the rest of the teams with at least 4 picks or more. You got something to add to that?
I mean, I was going to go back to what you said about Mendoza. Mendoza still would have been drafted. He probably is not the number 1 overall pick. I mean,
would have been a 3rd round, 4th round. Would have been. I don't know. Maybe he has a spectacular year and he still gets drafted very high.
Yeah, but he was going to be drafted, but probably not number 1 overall. Not a national championship run at Cal. And not the Heisman Trophy winner, most likely. But, yeah, I think he still would have been picked, but a different story going and doing what he did at Indiana. So, yeah, that's one way it goes. And for those numbers right there, I mean, Ohio State, they had the handful of guys there in the top 10 of the draft, and just a ridiculous class by them. Elko and company are doing some really good things down in College Station. And then, kind of shaking your head if you're a Clemson fan based on the fact that everybody around you, except for, I guess, Penn State was in the playoff or flirting with the playoff. And Penn State went a different direction with the James Franklin firing. Clemson's just kind of wandering around no man's land, it feels like, to some degree right now. But, it's no surprise that a lot of really good players played on a lot of really good teams that made the playoff last year. It's still a Jimmy's and Joe's game a lot of the time. And so, yeah, there's definitely some of the more talented teams, and then some that you're just kind of shaking your head wondering why. But you could have a bunch of great draftable players and not have a good quarterback, or not have a good O-line or whatever. So it's not the guarantee to success, but cool to see it broken down like that.
How about this with the portal? In 2026, 75 different programs had a player drafted. Now, you look at that graph. I mean, it peaked, what was that? I guess that's back maybe in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. Peaked. That's like a really nice stock market jump. It's been slowly leveling off, and this 75 teams, that's the lowest number of teams, single, 1 player, no matter what, or 8. The lowest amount of programs that have had a player drafted since 1938.
I mean, yeah, it's like we're talking about. There's talent that's going one direction, so there's lesser teams.
It's just a graph. I know. Yeah, I know. But it continues to just validate everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it shows exactly what we're talking about. And that's that direction is going to certain schools. They're not spread out as much as they were. So yeah, there's another way to look at it, and shows you exactly what we've been discussing here. And again, I don't think that's a genie that you can put back in the bottle. So get used to it. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. I don't think magically you wake up tomorrow and everybody's just not allowed to move around anymore. The money's suddenly not in play. I mean, it's only going more that direction. And I guess the only way to stop it would be to do things that the people in charge don't want to do, and professionalize it to where there's more contracts and you're on teams for a set amount of time. But we're not there yet, and I don't know how soon we may or may not get there.
All right. So I'm going to ask the chat, you guys and gals, and Craig, you can jump in here as well. I would have gotten about 50% of these names, probably not in order. I would have gotten 80% of the teams. Which team, not with the most players drafted, which teams have the longest streak of having at least one player drafted? Well, and there we are. Rez put it up there. Michigan and USC have gone 88 consecutive drafts. 88 with a player. Florida, 1952. Now, you would have thought they weren't always good. I mean, they've had their bubbles of like average. Miami, they started to still didn't do much in the mid-50s. In fact, they almost like lost their program. And then here comes the Canes. And then you have Notre Dame. How about Kirk Ferentz, Hayden Fry, and Iowa since the late 1970s? And Notre Dame streak would actually would be 88, 1938 too, if the 1977 supplemental draft had counted. Wisconsin did not have a player drafted, and they had at least one player drafted every year except this year since 1979. I don't see, there's some alphas missing on that list, but those are the ones with the longest consecutive years of having an NFL player or someone drafted in the NFL.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I know that we've seen Texas, Oklahoma, other big schools in recent years who have had the Ofer spot. So, or Texas, I'm thinking of specifically. But yeah, it's interesting to see that laid out like that. Hadn't thought much about the active streaks with a pick. But Michigan and USC, I mean, you're going to find them in Florida and Miami and Notre Dame all over who's got the most natties, who's got the most Heisman, who's got the most All-Americans, who's got the most wins. I mean, it's the same themes with all these things. Just a little bit of a different arrangement. Iowa's maybe a little bit of a surprise, but they're just steady. They're super steady. So, yeah, Michigan and USC, I wonder if I even see a day where they don't get drafted or somebody drafted one year, and haven't seen it in my lifetime just yet, so probably won't. And if it does happen, then obviously things were disastrous because that's a hell of a streak they put together.
All right. I got a couple of business stories, and we'll hold for a couple of 2 or 3 more for later in the show. Oregon is going to Tokyo, Japan. How cool is this? And I would think that there's a lot of like Notre Dame and a few other of the Blue Bloods, but Oregon is headed. Dan Lanning, Dante Moore, who could be the first, second, or third pick next year, and other players are taking Tokyo, Oregon football showcase. I think this is cool as hell. I lived in Japan for 4 years, from my 8th grade through my junior year. They had football players. It's a good game. It's not like the NFL. It's not going to be. But this is a chance to showcase the game for the great country of Japan. And Oregon's going to be the team that is the one doing camps, etc. Moore, the receiver, is going to be there too, along with other stars at Oregon football.
DeCorian Moore, who is a Texas guy.
Duncanville.
Dante Moore, the quarterback. That's a couple of pretty talented Moore guys right there. But, yeah, they have a history there. I mean, they played USC there back in the day, so I don't think football's too foreign to the Japanese people, but that's a cool opportunity for the Oregon team and representatives to go to a really cool country and experience a different culture and spread the love of American football. So, yeah, I think there's been a lot of ambassadors. I've seen the NFL all over the place. I mean, they're clearly trying to expand as much as they can because they've made all the money they can in America. So now they need to go everywhere they possibly can to keep making more and more money. And college football's dabble with the thought of that, although that's not something like at the NFL where they've got a pathway to go and make big money foreign wise, but it's not a bad idea to plant seeds and to do camps in different countries and see what that amounts to in 10, 15 years. Maybe you got more Japanese players coming over and playing football or picking up flag football or something along those lines. So yeah, just in general, sounds like a cool opportunity. And yeah, very cool that the Ducks are doing that.
The Pac-12, they've had to kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, right? With the loss of many of their teams, 4 of them to the Big 12. The Big 10 got a chunk. The ACC got some too. Here is their logo, the new logo. Now, it all depends on who you look at, but it's going to be kind of a black and white look. I'm Pactful. Obviously thankful for what this is. Texas State down on I-35, just south of Austin. Texas State Athletics, as the Pac-12 unveiled the new logo, as they also have now put out new media assets and much more. And that's the new logo for the 12, as they have grown after being basically almost obliterated, as I said, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I don't like the logo. I think the old logo was better. It looked more like a mountain underneath the A, and now it looks like some like Saucony shoe logo or something
looks like
along those lines.
What's that? A sickle.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't look like a mountain though, like it did in the original Pac-12 logo. So I'm sure different people you ask, like a Rorschach test, what they see. I know what I saw before, and I know it's not quite as good what I see now, but yeah, I also don't think that I'm Pactful is very, it's very, I don't know, good. I just think that's like, it's kind of a stretch. I'm Pactful. No. You said impactful is what it says. Impactful. That makes sense actually. All right, never mind.
What I said.
You said I'm Pactful, I thought.
Oh, okay. Well, hell,
I
don't even know what I just said.
That makes no sense
ago.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually,
it is. I'm Pactful.
No, it's impactful. I'm Pactful doesn't make any sense.
What? Here, look at the way they wrote the
I know how the M looks. I'm telling you, it's impactful.
Well,
it's not I'm Pactful.
Well,
what does
they
I'm
also
Pactful
need to hire
mean?
somebody to do their social.
What does Pactful mean to you? It's impactful. What? It's got to be impactful.
I'm saying what it says. It's impactful. Impact. Like it's impactful.
Right. That's what I'm saying too. You said I'm Pactful originally.
Well, the way they have it, everyone else tell me whether it says I'm or M, but I get what you're saying. But there's the logo.
So I initially thought it was I'm Pactful, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. But impactful, okay, that actually makes sense. I can roll with that.
All of the new teams and the logo have been released, and a lot of reaction to it. There's always going to be a reaction when there's images and also so much more. When we come back, we'll have Eric Galko, who's the football operations director, manages the East-West Shrine game, looking back at the draft. Mike Craven at 425 on the Brendan Sorsby story, because he has written a bunch of stories, of course, for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine on college football in Texas. He's gone to every campus. I think one was a Zoom link. And later on, also, Lauren Beasley will join us. She has covered many things and also had a story about when Arkansas's tennis teams are going to disappear and what that means. That and more. We appreciate your time. This is the Smoke Show with Craig Smoke and David Smoke. And back in a moment with Eric Galko. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Alan Samuels with Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager. David Gray is the supervisor for the sales department, and, of course, others who do that too, trying to get you the vehicle that you want as they head into the last few days of April into the month of May. It's springtime. The weather's getting warmer. Get excited about maybe getting a new. I bought my car, and it would have been in May of 2020, my pre-owned car. And speaking of that, on their lot, yes, they have Jeep. Yes, they have Ram. They have great SUVs, pickup trucks, and more, but also a tremendous variety and a great selection of pre-owned cars. That's the one I got in May of 2020. So hopefully you could find that too, if that's what you want. I went there not knowing if I was going to get a new car or a pre-owned car. I said, what the heck? I kind of like this. And the price was fantastic. And I do appreciate AJ back in the day who set that up for me and took care of me with that too. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Broker is your Lennox premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
We're celebrating the Declaration of Deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $11,000 off a new Ram 2500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
Extreme Texas weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Known Eric Galco for a long time, back when he had a scouting service, still does in many ways, Optimum Scouting. He was a guest of our show. He's fantastic. And now he runs the East-West Shrine Bowl. That's the kind of talent evaluator he is. And he joins us on 365 Sports. And Eric, thank you very much for your time. So when the draft ends, when it's over, do you take like a long nap, or do you just start grinding towards 2026, 27 draft? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, we've been starting on 2027 draft class for a while. I'm going to talk to you guys today, Monday after the draft. But really, our staff's been going on next year's class since really January of this past year. So we're kind of actually rounding third base in our preseason evaluation for next year as well. But a little of a break, making sure all the guys that played in the Shrine Bowl are taken care of, helping NFL teams out post-draft as well, too, and getting things situated as well, too. But we are thankfully in a good spot for 2027's class already.
So, Eric, I know we're going to talk to you mostly about 2026 today, but we had timely news today, the Brendan Sorsby story. Not sure if you saw that or not, but I was asking not so much about him, but in preparing for 2027, I'm sure you've maybe seen others say this, but that quarterback possibility, if everybody were to come out, now we know they all won't come out because of NIL and all of that, but man, it could be kind of special. Did you pick up on that and kind of looking ahead a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I talked to a lot of quarterbacks that are stayed in school for next year's draft, telling them, hey, I don't say this often, but next year's class could be pretty strong. And I think the big part of the narrative that kind of gets lost a little bit that I want to clarify is that I'm not sure next year's class is going to have 10 first-round quarterbacks or even 6 first-round quarterbacks. What next year's class has for most NFL evaluators is a very high floor of good quarterbacks. quarterbacks. Hey, we're going to have probably 15 guys that could be top 2 or 3 round quarterbacks. And we know some guys are going to have down years or worst case injuries or want to stay another year because of NIL reasons. So it won't be that many guys, but most years we go into the draft with 6, 10 guys that could emerge. And some years they don't emerge, such as this year for guys like Carson Beck and Garrett Nussmeier did not go in the first round like most expected. But I think in next year's draft class, NFL teams have a lot of confidence that, hey, 4 or 5 guys have a really good chance of going in the top 40 picks.
Yeah, the Sorsby thing, how do you think that will play? Is there a supplemental draft anymore in case he's ruled ineligible? Is that even – I don't even know if they have that anymore, do they?
It does. The NFL can choose whether to have a supplemental draft every year or not, depending on the number of prospects. And candidly, I saw the news. It's been a busy afternoon meeting-wise, so I haven't really processed it myself. I hope he's okay. Texas Tech's going to support him. Joey McGuire, James Blanchard, that staff there do a great job of being very player-first. That's why players want to go there besides the NIL reasons, and they'll take care of him first as well, too. And Texas Tech is going to be a great team, whether he's their quarterback or not. They have a great infrastructure around him. So I hope he's okay and hope we can all kind of let that digest for a minute and find out what the next best steps are.
Right on. So when it comes to what we watched the last few days, what did you walk away from thinking about most? As you know, rather than just asking, like, who is the best player? Like, what was of most interest to you walking away from the last 3 or 4 days?
You know, in the last month or so, talking to NFL clubs about like overall what this draft was, it was not a strong draft beginning, middle, or end coming into the draft class, right? NFL teams were like, hey, it's not very top heavy. There's not a big run on guys in the middle rounds, and it's not going to be a deep draft either. And what I thought would happen, which ended up happening, was one, a lot of medical guys fell drastically or out of the draft. A lot of character guys slipped because of it as well, too. But in general, teams just wanted to hit base hits this year. And we saw like Nate Borkercher, the tight end from Texas A&M, win second round by the Jaguars, and people were up in arms about that. Like, that's a base hit of a draft pick. That guy's going to be a good blocker in the NFL. He's going to play in the NFL for a decade. Is it worth usually what second round values are? That's, can be debated a little bit. But hey, this guy's going to play on our team. I think a lot of NFL teams say, you know what? We want to leave this draft with 4 or 5 guys to make our roster because it's not as strong as before. That was really, I think, a resounding theme talking to teams before, and especially after the draft, the last 24 hours was like, hey, we left this draft being, hey, we're going to have a draft that most of these guys can make our roster. It was not the year to take big swings and big chances. And I think teams showed that throughout the class.
So Caleb Downs falls in the lap, really. I mean, sometimes the best drafts are the ones you let come to you. I think Pittsburgh used to be really good about that for a long, long time. So I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, okay, that made sense. So it's not like anyone like did something stupid, but how does perhaps the best player in the draft go 11? How does that happen, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, it's not a premium position, which teams are very much focused on. And why that matters is, you look around in free agency, for example, if you want to get a receiver in free agency, it's not going to happen. You're going to get a guy like Mike Evans on the back end of his career. You're going to have to overpay for a guy that hasn't really hit his ceiling yet. Like if you need a receiver, you've got to draft one, right? Same thing for edge rusher. Those guys really don't get to free agency very often. And when they do, you're paying a heavy premium for a guy that may not even be worth that. And offensive tackle. So when we hear that term premium position, it's a big reason because, hey, you can sometimes find safeties or running backs or even tight ends in free agency. It's hard to find receivers, edge rushers, tackles, and increasingly cornerbacks. And that's why those guys go earlier than safeties. That being said, I think Caleb Downs can absolutely change the identity of your defense, which is what you're looking for in building a football roster, right? Guys that, hey, our defense is now different than it was before because of this one player. And, Caleb Downs and Micah Parsons, different talents, different positions. But I think for Dallas, Caleb Downs, I think in the next 2-3 years, could give them their new identity on defense. We've got a lot of great players. The Cowboys did a great job overall in kind of replacing Micah Parsons in the aggregate, to quote Billy Beane from Moneyball, right? But I think Caleb Downs is the one that's going to be looking back and being like, man, they just got, Harrison Smith, who fell too far in the draft a long time ago, or Kyle Hamilton for the Ravens, who fell to 20s. Like, I think Caleb Downs is maybe a better version of those guys that can really be the identity of the Dallas Cowboys defense, which I think they needed post Micah Parsons.
So it was funny to kind of see the elation turn to a little bit of being perplexed when they got their second first-round pick with Malachi Lawrence from UCF. Now, we watched him. He's a really good player, but were you surprised to see him go in the first round? Did that feel like a bit of a reach at all?
Not at all. He played in the East-West Shrine Bowl in Dallas. The Cowboys and Jerry Jones and Schottenheimer saw him in Dallas at their practice facility during Shrine Bowl week, and he was always going to go in the first round. In fact, we saw a lot of teams shortly after the Cowboys at 23 trade out of their spots. More than a few of those were because they wanted Malachi Lawrence and he wasn't there anymore. And this is a guy that is still absolutely ascending as a player. He's not, a 20-year-old kid. He's 22 years old. He's been seasoned, but he started to hit his ceiling as an edge rusher the last couple of years. And I think this year he showed that he can not only get a great first step as a pass rusher, but finish in the backfield, which a lot of edge rushers in college don't do a great job of doing. He can get the pressure and make a play on the quarterback or running back to finish. And as an athlete, one of the best athletes in the entire draft class across all positions, but especially edge rushers. So the Dallas Cowboys, between Malachi Lawrence and Jayshawn Barham later on, did a great job adding two unique weapons that I think together can help replace Micah Parsons in a big way. But Malachi Lawrence, not a reach at all. First Shrine Bowl, first round pick this year, and a guy that I think Dallas Cowboys fans should be excited about.
Harold Perkins.
Yeah.
Freshman year, he owned college football. He was fantastic. I know he had an injury, but it just seemed like I didn't even realize until I'm actually coming home from playing a round of golf, and I look at the 7th round. I'm like, oh, damn, Harold Perkins. Was there something else, or did he not? Did he peak early? What happened?
Yeah, I think he was more of a difficult to peg spot for a defense. And I mentioned earlier, this draft class was all about being risk averse for NFL teams. And not that Harold Perkins is risky by any way. He's a really good athlete. He's played a lot of spots, but figuring out exactly where he'll fit in a defense, every team I talked to had questions. And some teams thought he'd go much earlier, to be clear. Some teams thought he might go in the 3rd round. And that's how crazy the draft is 3rd round grades can fall at the 6th round sometimes. But Harold Perkins has played 400 plus snaps in his college career at linebacker, at edge rusher, and defensive back alignments. He's played special teams at LSU. Like, he's going to come in as a late 6th round pick, and be guy teams can absolutely help on special teams and as a rotation guy. But I'm still a big believer in Harold Perkins. I think that he fell because teams were unsure what he is, but I think when he gets into their building and can play in their defensive front 7, to play in their defensive backfield even, I think he'll show he could be a defensive chess piece and a defensive weapon there as well too. So 6th round, because what's he going to play in the NFL? But I think he'll have a long NFL career as well.
So we had no doubt about who 1-1 was with Mendoza, but then there was the big talk about how the quarterbacks would fall, and there's this Tai Simpson pick by the LA Rams. Did you have to pick your jaw off the floor like a lot of other people? And just your thoughts on hey, I think everybody's response, at least now, is like, well, hey, McVay knows quarterbacks, and I mean, like, who's to doubt him? But just a very interesting selection by LA there.
Yeah, I mean, most NFL teams thought Tai Simpson would be one of two places, Arizona or Los Angeles, for a long time now. And Les Snead, it's been pretty made well aware now that he's friendly with Tai Simpson's father and advised him on the draft process, something that I knew, and a lot of people in the industry kind of knew that Les Snead and Simpson family was close together. And then when they traded their late 1st round pick for Trent McDuffie, it was now like, is Les not going to take him, or the Rams not going to want that kind of guy? And that was worked out in the end. They took him at 13 overall, and to a surprise for a good number of NFL teams as well. I think this is, to your point, like, a lot of this is banking on Sean McVay. I mean, Sean McVay is a big reason why this pick can make sense, right? For other situations or other teams, Tai Simpson's a 1-year starter who struggled the back half of the year, still uber talented, but a lot of tools to be developed. And in most schemes, that'd be a big question mark. With Sean McVay, we all kind of take McVay for granted, and maybe for good reason. And I think a lot of NFL teams were surprised, being that this Rams team is a bit older on offense in some areas, feels like they've got a 2-year window now to win a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford and Devontae Adams and some of their offensive line pieces, some of their contracts kind of coming up in the next 2 years. A lot of teams thought they'll go receiver, they'll go offensive line and kind of fortify the team for the future. And instead, they went the other way, with their only pick in the top 50 being a quarterback who ideally won't play at all for the next 2 years. It was surprising NFL teams. But again, Sean McVay is a quarterback whisperer. A lot of quarterbacks the last 2 years, agents, have been wondering, hey, how can I get my quarterback to the Rams to be Matt Stafford's heir apparent? And now it's Tai Simpson who have a chance to be Sean McVay's next quarterback, hopefully in 2 years from now. Did
you see I watched when they discussed Tai Simpson, that like McVay was angry, pissed. He had to kind of discuss it, I guess, later the next day or whenever. But I mean, they have Stafford. There's nothing wrong with, if you feel like that guy can be your quarterback in the future. If it's a quarterback, you take him.
Most NFL teams have thought, again, agents, quarterbacks themselves, like that is their situation is most similar to when the Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love when they had Aaron Rodgers. It's the complete, analogous situation. And every quarterback wanted to be a Los Angeles Ram. If you told Fernando Mendoza deep down, 1st overall pick, or sit behind Matt Stafford and play with Sean McVay, he might tell you the Rams situation may be better, right? Because it's a perfect situation. You got Puka Nacua. You have a front office that drafts super well. You got young offensive linemen. The defense has been rebuilt and is young as well, too. So this Tai Simpson pick only makes sense if Sean McVay is there to develop post Matt Stafford. And I think Sean McVay had to be on board with this pick. I think that kind of narrative got a little bit taken outside of context. And I think Sean McVay is going to be a big reason why this Tai Simpson draft pick at 13 makes sense.
I know you can't, it's like name a favorite because you have all these guys that come and play in your game and work out and all of that. But were there's maybe a couple guys that you got to know throughout the process this year or over the years that was pretty cool to see their names get called?
Oh, a lot of guys, man. I mean, some guys I've seen go through a lot in their college careers and their personal lives and come out through and be successful in the NFL. And I think that's probably the best part about it. I mean, certainly Malachi Lawrence, I've gotten to know him super well. Fantastic person, still ascending, leader as a player at UCF, but has a lot of talent as well. He greatly impressed. Eli Heidenreich of Navy and Landon Robinson of Navy both played in the Shrine Bowl this year. Both Navy kids, incredible kids. 2 Navy draft picks for the first time probably since 1940. Like, I don't even know when, but that's been crazy to have those two guys both be drafted, and Heidenreich there in Pittsburgh. And he texted me right after I got off the stage being drafted, which is super cool as well. So I think those two guys jump out. And then, a couple guys I think people in fantasy football leagues will be watching this year that I know really well. Xavion Thomas of LSU, now a Chicago Bear. He'll be their slot receiver, and Skylar Bell at UConn, who's now with the Buffalo Bills as a 4th-round pick. I think both those guys, landed in great spots. I'm really happy for both of them. And if you're playing fantasy football, those are 2 sleepers to watch late in the draft.
Okay. Michael Trigg, the tight end from Baylor, All-American last year, phenomenal talent, USC, Ole Miss, Baylor. Yeah, he's had some things happen to him over his career. Incredibly talented. I mean, just dripping with talent. But I always felt like there was a chance that he would fall. I even talked to a couple of scouts at their pro day. I always just felt like that was a landing spot would be Dallas. They're going to get guys like that, and hopefully they click. Did anyone even nibble on him at all until the 7th round, or in this case, when the draft was all but over?
Again, I'll beat the same drum, but this was a risk-averse draft, and I think a lot of character players that had character question marks from their college time, a lot of teams just said, not this year, right? Mm-hmm. This was not the year for most NFL teams to take any risks, right? Even we saw Jermon McCoy of Tennessee with medical stuff fell to the 4th round. Like, most years, a team would say, you know what? We'll take a risk here in the 2nd because we'll get a guy in the 4th we feel good about. Teams didn't feel that way. I think for Michael Trigg, obviously his transfers and some of the off-field stuff has been documented. I think NFL teams never got their arms around him as a guy we want to invest a draft pick in that we felt great about drafting. And I wasn't too surprised when he went on draft. I thought he maybe had a chance in the 6th, 7th, but it was a strong tight end class. A lot of tight ends went early. And when that started happening, for guys like Michael Trigg, who have some question marks off the field, and the NFL team say, you know what, if we don't get him, we'll be okay. But obviously he's super talented. And now in Dallas, I mean, he'll have a chance to compete for a roster spot there. PFA is only the start. A guy like Michael Trigg with his talent, if he does the right things off the field in training camp, like, he can go win a job there for sure as a rookie.
Eric, was there somebody that has to come out of the weekend and they were in a blur, a fog? They were like, it didn't make any sense? Or did everybody, you mentioned the theory and the narrative and the philosophy, but was there a team or two that you feel like didn't have any idea what the hell they were doing?
No, I mean, it's hard for me because I talk to a lot of these teams and kind of know what their thought process is. And, I thought it was interesting. The Arizona Cardinals, I think, are really interesting what they did, right? Jeremiah Love's a running back. They've got 2 other running backs in James Conner and Tyler Algier, who I would imagine they're both going to be on the roster. So now you got 3 running backs who all want the ball and all can't play special teams. And then, quarterback in Carson Beck, who I think has a lot of talent, but, are they going to be a team that drafts a guy on day 2 and then drafts another guy in the 1st round next year? So they're the one that I'm not quite sure. They're the kind of 2 timelines period. Hey, we hope we win this year, but also maybe next year's draft as well too. That's the one that I just don't know versus it was a bad draft. But, I think NFL teams across the board at the Jaguars draft has been, heavily talked about, like, hey, they took a lot of Shrine Bowl guys. They took 4 Shrine Bowl guys. So I think they're pretty good. But I think the Jaguars said, hey, you know what? We've got 22 starters we already feel good about. Let's take guys that can make our roster. I think a lot of NFL teams wisely said, hey, we're going to want to get 5 guys out of this draft that can make our roster this year and just get out. So I'd say the Cardinals, I'm curious what their thought process was versus it was a bad draft because they got a lot of great value across the board.
The last question for me, Philadelphia, and Howie Roseman's done a great job. He's got a couple of rings, and they drafted the athlete, the guy who's a freak out of Nigeria to play, and it don't seem like he has much history there. It wasn't until the last round, I believe, but your thoughts about that. How much did you know about that young man?
So nothing until his workout. I love the NFL's International Pathway Program. They do a great job. I worked with them when I was at the XFL 5 years ago now. And I know their head of scouting, Mark Dilgarian, who there's a shout out. He used to work for at Optimum Scouting in my company. Now he's their head of scouting for the National Pathway Program. And I talked to him about him, and he's like, hey, Uar Bernard is his name. Like, he's still figuring out football. Like, he's picked it up quickly, but he's in year 1 of playing football when most guys out of the NFL are year 12, year 13 of playing football in their lives. So he's got a ways to go there. But the physically impressive piece, and one thing I'll tell Mark said as well, is that this guy just learned how to do these testing drills a couple months ago. Like, he probably can run a faster 40 or do a better broad jump, technically speaking, because he's so athletic. So I think NFL teams thought, hey, this guy's a moldable ball of clay. And the National Pathway Program is, hey, if you have an international player, he could be on your practice squad. He doesn't count towards your number, and a team can't poach him unless they put him on the active roster. So really for the Eagles, this is a 7th-round guy. Let's stash him for 2 years. He doesn't cost us anything on the roster, doesn't cost anything on the practice squad. And if he ends up being the next Jordan Mailata, that's important. One last thing on this international pathway. I mentioned Jordan Mailata. It took him about 3 years to be able to make the Eagles roster, and the Eagles were patient doing that. Ideally for Uar Bernard, we don't hear about his name until 2028. And at that point, maybe he is another superstar player for the Eagles. But fantastic story and a great part of the program for the International Pathway Program for the NFL.
Good story, great human interest story, great journey. Thank you, Eric. Good luck in all of what you start working on 2027. The East-West Shrine Bowl, of course, you do a great job with that here in Texas. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Eric Galko, East-West Shrine Bowl, and is the one, he's their football ops. And as you can tell, he is locked in on many things when it comes to the NFL draft. When we come back, I'm going to look at a couple other names that I thought of players who did drop. Torian York at A&M. Garrett Nussmeier, we've discussed that a little bit, the LSU quarterback. Anthony Hill from Texas, among some others. Then there's the story about Vandy's Diego Pavia and where he's going to go, at least have a tryout and more. And we have 2 or 3 more business stories, including one tomorrow that could have a huge impact on college athletics. And this is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI.com, inside the Central Texas Marketplace off I-35 in Waco. Dr. Rob Maxey, his partners. What a great business, because for you, the customer, 2 things happen. One, if you're having some sort of pain that might be a torn ligament, you hope not, might be a pulled muscle, that's not bad, but not a torn muscle, or something else that's with your joints or your back or whatever that needs a better look, and your doctor wants a better look for evidence. The film don't lie, as they say with coaches watching game film. Ideal MRI could also be very affordable. $497 or less every single time you get an MRI, and state-of-the-art imaging machine to make sure they get the pictures your doctor needs from whatever angle it comes from. It is inside the Central Texas Marketplace. It's idealmri.com.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Join the celebration. It's 27 years for Richard Car Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings. The GMC Sierra delivers strength, power, and a refined interior loaded with premium comfort and technology. During Richard Car's 27th anniversary sale, find savings like $9,000 off all Sierra 1500 Pro and SLE models in stock. Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
Richard Car, they have the truck for you.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
And here we go, the Smoke Show at the 4 o'clock hour. Craig Smoke, David Smoke. That Texas Tech helmet was something we used last week 2 or 3 days. It's not because of the story today with their quarterback and Brendan Sorsby and an investigation about gambling. He has checked himself into a center to work on that. And then also the story that also was this afternoon, same day, where he and his attorneys are also trying to get the lawsuit by Cincinnati thrown out, claiming the $1 million penalty for him leaving Cincinnati for Texas Tech is unlawful under Ohio law. And so there's that. The intent of the agreement was to incentivize Mr. Sorsby's attendance at University of Cincinnati, reward him for playing football. Now that he has exercised his right to transfer to another school, UC is trying to punish him and selectively send a chilling message to other student athletes. Craig?
Yeah, I think the gambling story is really interesting. The other story is a lot less interesting than the gambling one, but I understand that's got to work its way through. And at this point, I think that's much lesser of a concern for Brendan Sorsby and his people than him getting the help that he needs. But yeah, we talked for a few minutes at the top of the show, and it's something I just saw driving into town today that dropped across the wire there, and I'm still just stunned. I'm stunned by it, and I'm just really curious as to what road this leads to, and if that road is in fact a place where Brendan Sorsby can't play college football next year, because based on what we've seen before, he should not be available to play college football next year. He bet on his own team. And that's a no-no. And so had it been, I guess, like the Trailblazers game or something, like I know there's things that are allowed and things that aren't, but we know that the betting on your own team is a massive no-no.
But they wanted to allow gambling up to a certain amount on pro sports, but I think even then they walked back on that too.
Yeah, I don't know where it all is, all the gambling stuff, because I don't care about gambling. Like, I do not care about it. It is not something I've ever gotten into. I totally understand the appeal of it. It's the appeal that I saw when I used to drink or smoke or party or whatever. Like, there's a thrill that comes from it, and it's just a thrill that I've never gotten caught up in, and I'm thankful that I didn't, because my personality, I probably would have ran that to the red light. Unfortunately, didn't have enough money to really gamble to begin with, so that worked out well. But I think there's a lot of elements here of just gambling in general and how widely accepted it is, how much it's pushed all the time. Try to watch a game without some gambling mention from Kalshi or from
Underdog,
FanDuel or Underdog or whatever. It's constant. You go on Twitter, their accounts are constantly out there and getting boosted and just commenting on everything under the sun. Like every commentator that's made a hit tweet seemingly is sponsored by a gambling company at this point, just to try to get more of the word out and more of the rub. And it's all been very normalized, and almost to the point where if you don't gamble, you're looked at as almost strange in a way. So that's the nest that was created these last several years. That was the bed that was made by all of the people who are turning around going like, do you think maybe we got a gambling problem? It's like, yeah, after you made your billions off of it, and then now you look up and you realize like, oh crap, maybe we set off a chain reaction here that's not the best for all involved. Now it's up to ultimately whether you're drinking a beer or smoking a cigarette or doing anything that they're like, you have to have your own self-responsibility. So it's not Brendan Sorsby's fault that FanDuel spent $1 billion on commercials on ESPN or whatever. That's not their fault, but I just don't get clutching pearls over gambling anymore because it's so normalized. So I'm not surprised that another athlete got caught up in gambling. I'm just shocked that it was freaking Brendan Sorsby and that it could really have a massive effect on Texas Tech season and then the race that they're in at large, whether it be the conference or national playoffs. So that part is the fascinating part to me. Like I said earlier, if he's really got a problem, then I hope he gets that worked out because gambling addiction's no bueno. So hopefully he can get that curved. If he's going in there just to kind of save face and kind of lessen the blow of the news, then I hope that he sees the light and doesn't just use and takes the time, whether he really wanted to or not, to still find a way to make it productive for him. But yeah, this is a really interesting story on a lot of levels. I mean, just forget the Texas Tech part of it, and I could spend 2 hours on that alone. But like, how does this affect his NFL stock next year? Like, how do NFL teams view a guy who maybe got suspended for his entire final season for gambling? Like, how is that looked upon? Now, I'm sure you got enough talent, things can be overlooked to some degree, but we just got done talking to Eric Galco, and they're saying like no Diego Pavia, no Michael Trigg, like anybody who's doing foolish stuff, like we want no part of that. And so where would that fall for Brendan Sorsby, as talented as he is? I don't know. That's all going to be the stuff that we unpack over the next few months, from the team perspective to the league perspective to the individual perspective. And it's just, it's shocking to see that come down earlier today.
I would like to get feedback from you, our audience, and what do you think in the end? Not what you want to happen not that, but what do you think should happen with Brendan Sorsby? I'm of the opinion, I don't know all the details, but basically I think his college career is over. That's not really what I want for him. Obviously, there's got to be consequences. I'd like to see him play. I don't care if it was at Troy or Texas Tech. What do you think should happen? What do you think should happen with Brendan Sorsby? From General Ursus, the best thing to do is never start anything that can be addictive. Then you don't have to worry about becoming a problem. And man, that's a lot easier said than done, but great advice from General Ursus.
Yeah, I mean, if there's somebody out there who's young enough to benefit from that advice, then that's great, because, it's valuable. There's probably too many of us that have crossed that line already, but, that rings true. And sometimes you got to experience yourself to see what road it takes you down. Unfortunately, for far too many people, gambling, drugs, alcohol, whatever the case may be. But if you have enough of an iron will and really like a clear enough mind to have that perspective at a young age, then I know some people who do. They just never got into drinking for whatever reason, just never cared about it. It wasn't like, oh, my father was an alcoholic and he beat me and that's why I don't drink, although there's examples of that. It's just like, no problems in my family, no history of it. I don't care about it. And there's people that are very lucky, I think, in that way. And then there's millions of people who dangle, with these or dabble with these things that have no problem whatsoever. And it's just fun on occasion or whatever. But there's a lot of people who do end up with serious issues, serious addictions, life altering, catastrophic things that happen. So if you're prescient and smart enough to never get started, that's the way to go. But unfortunately, especially when you're young, that's kind of in one ear and out the other. But I mean, based on what's happened to this point, he's got to be suspended for the whole year. You're betting on your own games. Granted, it's back at Indiana, but I don't think it matters when it was or where it was or anything like that. I think the rules are the rules. And so if you were betting on your own team, then I think that's, based on what we've seen thus far, a crime punishable by losing an entire year. Now, I won't pretend to know every in and out of the legal system, so I'm not sure what route Tech can take here and will likely take here, because they're obviously not going to let this go without a fight. But then again, we'll see, like, is this where he's going to pop in there for like a month and then he's all better? Or is he actually going to like have to work through some stuff? Like, I don't know. That's what needs to get cleared up for him first before the rest of us figure out how this works on a more broad level. But yeah, I would think that as of right now, it's the logical assumption that he's going to probably be suspended for the entire year. And my God, if that's what happens, then that is just crazy news, just absolutely crazy news.
Yeah, you wonder eligibility. You wonder about how much money he's about to lose.
Yeah, what's that contract with Tech say if he gets suspended for an entire year?
Is there a moral clause, or is there any kind of a way where Tech wants him to play? They have him on their roster and brought him in and recruited him and paying him because they want him to play, and he's a hell of a player. But at the same time, let's say he is suspended for 3 games. How does that all work? I think it's going to be the full season. I don't really know. Like I said, a couple of you have said no one cares in 10 days. I get what you're saying because the news cycle of 24 hours, but this is a big name. This isn't your All-American even center.
I mean, does it need to be Julian Sayin for it to matter? Like, I don't know. I think it's a big deal. I follow Texas Tech football pretty closely. Here's a guy who was the #1 quarterback by some people's estimation in the entire transfer portal, which had a lot of really good quarterback names in it. A guy who's clearly commanding a very high price tag and is like thought to be the missing piece to unlocking Tech's full potential. And a guy who in place, you go, damn, if they're a step or two better at that spot and they can just like maintain. Now, look, there's like, can they just go replace Jacob Rodriguez and Lee Hunter and David Bailey and all these guys because they went and had another really good class? Not necessarily. It doesn't just, you get the guys on paper and they always work out. Like, that was what was magical about their run last year. But if they do work out to mostly that degree, then you have this elite quarterback. Then that could put you over the top. So I'm fascinated by what happens here. Others may not be, but yeah, would you care if it was Bryce Underwood? Does it need to be like a bigger school for you to care, or do you not care in general and think that maybe it's gambling? Who cares at this point? Well, clearly, as much as they're willing to probably take the money from these companies, they're not willing to just greenlight everything. And so here's a situation where maybe he ran through a red light and maybe didn't think he's going to get caught. Maybe just, I don't know, but it's a fascinating story to be playing out.
You wonder with these contracts, the kind of money, the NFL, like we were just talking to Eric Galco, they were not going to pretty much all the way through the draft. They were not going to take any kind of risks that were unnecessary because you could always sign guys to undrafted free agent contracts. They were just not going to push the envelope. And you wonder, how much did Cincinnati, if you're a Cincinnati Bearcats fan, I'm not saying, oh, wait a minute, what about them? I just want to know, when did this all become an issue? Did Indiana know? Did Cincinnati do? No. Did Texas Tech know? You wonder, because in the NFL, they know if you broke your left pinky when you were 5. They do, believe me. Very rarely is there anything, injury or personal, they don't know about you, especially if they're interested in drafting you. And I'm talking about, I remember there's a story about a kid that was in Lufkin, Texas. He wasn't a highly rated player, but a pretty good player that ended up being, in the mix for an NFL draft. And they knew about the fact he had 3 kids. Not many other people knew that. And they knew that. And so they will find that out. I wonder if colleges are going to have to start doing that when it comes to NIL deals.
Doing what? Doing what with NIL deals?
Doing deeper dives in making sure that they even have somebody on their staff now that is a private investigator looking into various players that you're going to put that kind of money in their pocket.
I mean, I would assume they're already doing that to some extent,
maybe
but
they are.
I don't know to what degree everybody's capable of doing that. So yeah, I'm sure they don't have NFL level private investigators on standby for every single recruit that they pick up. But for a guy who's this much of an investment, then yeah, maybe you need to do that if you didn't already. And yeah, that is a question of what did Indiana know? And not the point of like, well, what did they know? But it's part of the missing piece of this story is like, yeah, who became aware of this first, how they become aware of it. That's not really as of much interest to me, unless there's just some scandalous knot that hasn't been untied yet. But I know that is part of the information that's not quite fully out there. I'm far more interested in just the end result and whether or not it is in fact a full year suspension and just the chain reaction that has. But yeah, there's questions about what he's been doing in the time. I mean, Indiana was years ago. That was 2 schools ago. So what's he been doing in the meantime? Was he betting on games at Cincinnati? I mean, we saw he was betting on baseball games randomly, like balls and strikes, which is fine. He can do that. But yeah, what else is out there that hasn't been uncovered yet?
Let me tell you something.
Anything.
Balls and strikes at like $1. I thought I saw that. No, $1 for each pitch. That can be exhilarating. That can be an adrenaline rush, and it also could get you in sideways where you start to do too much of it. And next thing you know, you're really making dumb decisions. By the way, for General Ursus, the best thing to do is never. Okay, I'm sorry. One other note. I say we will be seeing more of this in the future, no doubt. And we knew that even when stories about that started popping up with Iowa State, Iowa, et cetera. Unfortunately, thanks to the internet, nothing stays hidden anymore. And then on my Twitter feed, I got this response from the story. All I did was retweet Pete Thamel. Yep, sold our souls to the effing gambling. And the sponsors are everywhere. That doesn't mean that you're okay because you sold your souls. If you get in it, you get in it. It's your decision, not somebody else's decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody's gone the route of trying to just make money however they can and worry about the consequences later. And that was certainly the case with everybody is charging forward with gambling. I don't think they were too curious or cared much at all until they had to about the potential ramifications of it. So this is one of those that players get involved. And I see the comment, oh, well, they're all doing it anyways. Yeah, I don't have a kid this age, so maybe all the high school, college kids are gambling all the time. I can't speak to that, but I know it's more popular than ever now, and it's more easily accessible and typically more legal most places than it ever was before. So you got, I think, the logical story here of a guy who's making a lot of money and now has a lot of money to burn. And I don't know how much he had, though, at Indiana. Like, that's the thing, is like, how much NIL money did he have before we mostly knew who he was? Because you might have followed his recruiting prior to that.
At the beginning of the timeline when that was even available.
But, like, he was already betting then. But now he's got millions of dollars later because he wasn't making millions at Indiana. I don't think he was making – maybe he was making like $1 million plus at Cincinnati last year. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But – now we know he's making millions of dollars this year, or is set to make millions of dollars. So you take kids with legally accessible ways of gambling, and kids will be kids, and especially kids with a whole heck of a lot of money to burn and just the thrill of making bets. And yeah, it's not a shocker at all that we're here. Again, it's just surprising, not that this is taking place, but that it's just this player on this team heading into this season. It's just much more notable than maybe some similar cases.
Yeah. When did any of the former program, did they know? Did Tech know what's going to happen next? Mike Craven has interviewed Brendan Sorsby, does a tour of all the college football programs in Texas for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine and TexasFootball.com. He is next, and this is 365 Sports. QC Kinetics, helping patients, me, and hopefully you, with pain from arthritis, injury in your knees, shoulder, hips, lower back, even when you're not even moving or when you are, when you're sleeping. How often, I remember when I had the torn rotator cuff, I would sleep on my shoulder that had the injury. It would feel good, and then I'd like turn over to the other side, and then I back and forth. Golfing, running, jogging, whatever it might be. I dealt with a lot of that. For 4.5, 5 years, I didn't jog. I used to run a lot. Then I stopped because I couldn't, because my hip just had this tug, this pain. It just was uncomfortable. Now, for like almost a month now, I've been running 3 or 4 miles, a mile at a time. I got through it mentally and I got through it physically, but I had to get through it physically first because I had to experience like taking 10, 15, 20 steps and then, This is pretty good. Did it this morning. Played golf twice over the weekend. If you have any of that kind of pain, QC Kinetics can help you out by using your natural biologics inside your own body. Platelets, plasma, stem cells, and more. Spinning it, drawing your blood, spinning it, and putting it back in your body so your body heals your body. Think about that. So if you've been getting steroid injections and kicking the can down the road, if you hear any chatter now from your doctor about maybe having surgery, contact QC Kinetics. There's the number, Dallas and Houston, 972-972-8610, 713-913-5285. Free consultation. Why not listen to what they have to tell you and what it's all about? It's worked for me at QCkinetics.com.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help us finally hear semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio, this is 365 Sports. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
You know, you see these stories, and like the one with Brendan Sorsby, is like pretty much, and we have already like, okay, this is the show today. A lot of NFL draft, the guest, and more. And Mike Craven was going to join us anyway. And then the Brendan Sorsby story hits, and Mike Craven joins me. And he had a tweet earlier today. It cracked me up. Let me see if I still have it here. Would anyone like to rewrite the Texas Tech section in the magazine for me, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine? He joins us on the SMOAK Show at 365 Sports. Mike, I saw your to-do list. I have those too. You were so close, man. So close. And then now this story. So your thoughts when you heard the story pop today?
Well, what's funny is when we were planning the magazine for this year, I made a comment of, well, there's no spring portal, so we'll be able to get most of the stuff written by April and not have to worry about roster turnover or changes in May. And boy, was I wrong. So, yeah, I mean, the news, when I heard the news, it was surprising, like I'd imagine it was for everyone else. Not necessarily that a college football player was busted for this type of activity. But just the overwhelming amount of what it seems like, like Pete Thamel's reporting says thousands of bets. On3 says he was betting on balls and strikes at Cincinnati Reds games. But I don't think it's the other betting. Like if he was just betting on professional baseball, professional basketball, he'd probably get in trouble. He'd probably miss a game or two. He'd probably have to do some counseling or some educational work. But when you hear that he placed bets on a team that he was a part of, even if he wasn't on the field and even if he only bet them to win, I'm not sure how he can be Texas Tech's quarterback in 2026.
Well, if he bet on Indiana to win back before Cignetti was there, that in itself might show you that he wasn't paying attention or wasn't very smart at the time. I'm just a but-um-bum, not trying to – he got a great program now. Craig?
Yeah, Mike, as far as – I know we're kind of still all trying to process this news, but when you do look at it from just a football perspective and what Texas Tech had lined up with getting him, and now you go, here's an injured Will Hammond that we need to get back sooner, and here's what Lloyd Jones and some other guys. I mean, just how does this kind of initially at least get you thinking about Texas Tech and what this means for them next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. They did not spend as much on the defense, so like the defensive line in the front seven, as they did the year before, because they thought the money they had spent on offense, specifically Brendan Sorsby, was going to make the offense better. And as we saw against Oregon, the offense needed to get better. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. They said Will Hammond would be ready by week 3-ish, that he would be a full participant in August, knock some rust off, kind of get some practices in, but they didn't expect him to be ready week 1. I'd imagine that makes Kirk Francis the starting quarterback going into 2026 if Sorsby isn't available. And the hope is to get Will Hammond by week 3 in that Friday night game against Houston.
Mike Craven with us on 365 Sports. Is it too early to think about the number of wins affected by this? I know there's schedule. People have discussed it. It seems to be very manageable, but these games aren't free. You don't just go play them and win. Is it too early for that until we kind of see what happens?
Well, not in Vegas, which is ironic, that we're going to talk about gambling on a gambling story. But if you look at their win totals, it's down to 10.5 from 11.5, like today, because of this news. And so, luckily for Texas Tech, they do not face a gauntlet. They don't have Kansas State or BYU or Utah, and those are probably 3 of the other favorites. They haven't played TCU to the end of the season. To me, if we're just talking football, this is about weathering when Will Hammond can get back. Like with Will Hammond as their quarterback, Texas Tech can still win the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they have the ceiling they had with Sorsby. Like maybe they were in national championship contention before this news came out. I think right now it is back to being in Big 12 contention. But, I think with their defense and the talent around them, the running back room is going to be good. They brought back 3 starters on the offensive line. Like I still think they're one of the better teams in the Big 12. I just don't think they're one of the better teams in the nation anymore. And it all comes down to, Will Hammond's rehab and how quickly he can get back and how healthy he will be once he is.
So, Mike, what was kind of the sentiment prior to this news? Obviously, things change, but just what can you give us that's not going to spoil your story, which you now have to change to some degree? And actually, let me ask you that first. How do you even approach beginning to figure out what to do now with this news coming out today?
Well, for me personally in the magazine, I just Control-Alt the main bar and Control-Alt the offensive preview, press the delete button, and then just start over.
Oh, man.
So that's just kind of how that goes. We've all been in press boxes, right? Where you're writing a gamer. Sure. This team's up by 4. You got 600 words in front of you. Last second touchdown happens and, you erase it all. And so this will just fall into that file. But it's, it's big news, obviously. Doesn't change much defensively, but yeah, I mean, there's no way around it. I'm going to have to rewrite the main bar in the offensive preview for Texas Tech.
So you have made this tour. I think you mentioned UTEP was video link with Coach Walden. Let's kind of go looking, not all 13 programs, but let's look around. Your thoughts. Let's start with Willie Fritz in Houston, who made the big jump from his first year to the second year, get to 10 wins last year.
Yeah, I mean, the only Power 4 team in this state to return their 3 coordinators, their head coach, and their starting quarterback is Houston. Only 2 in the state have done it. The other one was Sam Houston, and they went 2-10 last year. So there's an argument to be made whether that's good or bad. But at Houston, definitely good. Fritz is, we call him Novocaine because it's going to work. It's just a matter of when. And I'm not sure people thought year 2 was when it was going to work. But I think Houston is right there in the dark horse Big 12 contendership conversation. Connor Wigman, probably the bounce back player of the year if college football gave away that type of award. They hit on both of their coordinators. They go and they have another really good transfer portal class. So, I think Willie Fritz is probably, the most, if not one of the most competent coaches in this state, in this country. I think his son, Wes Fritz, does a really good job on the personnel side. And they don't have a ton of money, when compared to a lot of these other Big 12 programs, but they do a good job spending it. I think their roster is solid, and they should be another 8, 9, 10 win season as long as they can manage a schedule that is tougher this year than it was last year.
So, Mike, we've been pretty tapped into Baylor over the years, and I can honestly say I don't know what the hell to expect other than I lean towards it being more negative than overall positive. I don't think there's like a Big 12 championship team looming under the radar right now. But what sense did you get? And just kind of asking around and talking to people, they're going about their business and doing all the right things, but, man, it's just been such a absolute question mark for going on 2 or 3 years now at this point.
Yeah, I think if I could sum up Dave Aranda's Baylor, it would be that they're reactionary. They didn't want to get into the transfer portal, and then they did. They didn't want to pay players with NIL, and then they did. They wanted to go win these kind of big high school recruiting battles and get some of these young players in that were going to be the next crop of stars. And then Dave Aranda looks around, and there's $3 or $4 million of his roster budget sitting on the sidelines with him last season, and that didn't work. So now they're back into the transfer portal heavy and signed a pretty good class. And so I'm just not sure they've had a concrete plan for multiple years. It feels like every year there is a new route and a new idea of how to build the roster and how to build the football team. I just don't know if that works. And so I think they made a really good hire at defensive coordinator. I think DJ Lagway at quarterback gives them upside. I imagine Baylor score points like Jake Spavital's offense is going to score points no matter where he's at. So I think they're going to be okay on that side of the ball. But if you ask me right now, is it more likely that Baylor's looking for a new coach or in Big 12 contention by November? I would definitely pick the Baylor looking for a new coach.
Yeah. And he knows that. I mean, he's all but said that.
Oh yeah. Doesn't, then he's just totally inept. Yeah.
And if not for the drama with Mac Rhodes in November or December, he's probably not here now.
Yeah. So I asked him in his office like 2 weeks ago, how do you kind of deal with the outside noise? And he kind of made a joke of like, well, you wrote something about me, and then a lot of other people wrote something about me. So he gets it. He understands it. One of the things he talked about was he never had to deal with this type of adversity before. And so he thought he was somebody who didn't care about it. Right. Like he thought he was somebody who didn't care about the outside noise. And it just turns out that he was successful at Utah State, and he was successful at Wisconsin. He was successful at LSU, and he was successful early on at Baylor. And he realized like, oh, this does bother me. And so, I think he's grown up from it on the outside. I think Aranda's always been willing to be honest and have those conversations. But at the end of the day, like, your job is to win football games, and he's going to be judged by that. And he was saved by the Mac Road stuff last year. And he's going to have to, I don't know. I think that's my biggest question for Baylor is like, what does success look like, and what would save Dave Aranda's job? Is it 6 wins? Is it 7? Is it 8? Like, I don't know the answer to that. But they're going to have to post a winning record, and they're going to have some enthusiasm in the program, because you just look around at McLean Stadium and it tells you all that you need to know.
Well, TCU feels like a team that sort of flies under the radar, even though, had a really solid year last year, but just kind of overshadowed by Tech and BYU and maybe even ASU to a certain extent. But the Jaden Craig move, very interesting to go to Harvard and grab a QB. What do you feel Sonny Dykes and the Frogs have cooking up this year?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about coaching changes and stuff is the 180 rule. Like, I think it's a lot like dating. Like, you go and get the opposite of your last dance partner, and that's exactly what TCU did at offensive coordinator. Like, they turned the ball over too much last year, so they went and hired the offensive coordinator for UConn, and the Huskies last year turned the ball over twice. Right? So, like, they're going to go under center more. They're going to run the ball more. Gordon Samus, the new offensive coordinator, is a former offensive line coach, former offensive lineman, and so Jaden Craig comes in, and they're not going to ask him to do what Josh Hoover was asked to do. I don't think they're going to ask him to do what Max Duggan was asked to do. I think they're going to try to be physical. They're going to try to run the football. They're going to try to play defense. Sonny kind of prides himself on being a contrarian. He used to be the portal guy before the portal was a thing, and now he's gone kind of more into the high school development ranks for them. And so, to me, TCU is kind of one of the biggest question marks of the teams I cover. It comes down to, are those classes that they've been excited about the last couple of years, have they been developed enough to replace the, Elarms Orr and Namdis at linebackers and the Bud Clarks at safeties? Like, they've lost a lot of production, and they're betting on kind of their high school guys growing up rather than what Tech's done and just gone to the portal and splash it.
Yeah, we had Sonny on a couple of weeks ago, and it does seem like he's pretty optimistic. And discussing it with a couple of people who cover or at TCU, they feel good about it. But they won 9 games last year, and it almost seems like, I didn't even remember that. And I even brought that up to him, and he was like, "Yeah, we won 9 games last year."
Yeah, the problem is they've been just above 500 in conference play.
Yes,
they've lost games that they shouldn't have. Like, I think if you were to describe Sonny's coaching career up until the last couple of years, one of the things you would say is they do a very good job of winning the games they're supposed to. Well, last year it was in 2024, they lost to UCF, and they lost to a Houston team that, neither one of those made a bowl games. Last year they lose to a 6-6 Kansas State team that they probably shouldn't have. And so I think if you're in the fan base, you look at it and you just want more. Like, and then, college football is as fun as it is miserable for your rivals. And they've seen SMU kind of explode. They've seen Texas Tech explode. And I think they look around and they go, why not us? Because when Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12, there was this conversation of, like, who fills the power vacuum? And TCU would have been one of the first 3 or 4 colleges mentioned in that. Metroplex, private school with money, just had gone to the national championship game. Like, it felt like this was TCU's conference to possibly run. You wake up from a long nap 3 years later and you go, like, where is TCU in this pecking order of the Big 12? Like, the game has changed. And so, I think the fan base has kind of grappled with what is realistic and what is not realistic. But I don't think back-to-back 9-win seasons can be viewed as a failure in Fort Worth, even if they've left some meat on the bone.
What's it like being around Mike Elko in College Station these days? Mike, just seems like the vibes are rolling along and good. And after a lot of drama with Jimbo and just how all that worked out, Sumlin prior to that, they had some moments, but this just seems different. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. There's like an extreme competence at Texas A&M that didn't exist before. Like, it's just, you can feel it there. Like, it is ran like a business. It's ran like a machine. It's very on the tracks. I think Jimbo Fisher wanted to win signing day, and he wanted to win the offseason, and he thought that would lead towards winning in the season and kind of building up the bravado and the confidence of A&M. And they would sign these big recruiting classes. They would have these big press conferences, and then they go kind of show it on the field, and it was all hat, no cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Elko's the opposite of that. He does not give a rip if you're talking about A&M in February, if you're talking about A&M in April. He prefers that you not. And they just want to win football games. But they lost a lot. They had to replace their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, 4 starters on the offensive line, their best wide receiver, their best defensive end, their best linebacker, and their best cover corner. Like, that is a lot to replace in College Station. I think their GM, Alex Miller, has done a really good job. I think A&M is going to be a good football team. But Marcel Reed has to be better in 26 than he was in 25. And I'm just not sure how much juice there is left to squeeze there.
Yeah, they had the most or tied for the most players drafted. So
10.
Had to reload with that. So is there a program that, for example, you did a video link with UTEP, Scotty Walden. I like him. I do, but I know they didn't play very well. Where are they? Like, where is someone like a UTEP in this day and age of college athletics and trying to win games?
Yeah, it's a struggle for sure. Because like, what do you do? Like if you recruit from the high school ranks and stock the pond that way, as soon as those young players are seen by others to be successful, they're going to go take them from you. But if you go into the portal, you don't have the money to compete with a bunch of those guys. So like, do you go FCS and non-FBS guys that are moving up that had all-American seasons that may be, you know, a couple inches too short or a couple tenths of a second too slow or whatever? Or do you go for kind of power forward tread downs that, you know, maybe have the bodies and the measurables and the recruiting stars, but weren't able to play at Missouri or, you know, Baylor or wherever. And so I think it's rocking a hard place for places like UTEP. Moving to the Mountain West is going to be good. That's a move that fan base has wanted forever. It's going to reignite some old rivalries from back in the WAC days in the early 2000s when Mike Price had it rolling. And so, you know, they feel like they've done really well recruiting on the high school ranks, and those players are going to show out. And they went and got EJ Colson from the transfer portal at UIW. And so they think that they're going to be better, but it's just hard to predict the G6 rank. Like we just saw it in the NFL draft. Like there has never been a wider gap between the haves and the have-nots in this sport. Like at the same time, two things is happening. Like the gap has closed between Georgia and Ohio State and everyone else at the Power Four, but the gap has separated even more from the Power Four and the G6. Like it's just a 1 year revolving door. And so you just have no idea, or at least I have no idea what UTEP and a lot of those G6 programs are going to be.
No, right there in the same boat with you. And I know we can't cover everybody I don't think we're going to probably get to SMU, Mike, but I do want to ask you about Texas because you've covered them for a long time and everybody knows the spree that they went on this offseason. They're always high expectations. They're always a top-ranked preseason team, but does this feel a little bit different, or does it feel kind of same old around Austin?
No, it feels like the hype they got going into last year was the hype they should be getting going into this year. In the magazine, we do an all-Texas team. And above that all-Texas team are the superlatives where it's like best quarterback, best running back, best wide. You could make an argument that Texas has the best at every single position group. Like you can make an argument that they have the best quarterback, the best running back, the best wide receiver, the best offensive lineman, defensive lineman, linebacker, and defensive back in the state. Like they are loaded. And they have a coaching staff that they really believe in by bringing in Will Muschamp. I think Sark believes that he kind of has a counterpart on the defensive side of the ball that can bring the fire and brimstone that he does on the offensive side. You know, they have a quarterback with experience now. They have a high-priced transfer portal. You look at the projections for next year's draft, which I know are shooting fish in a barrel, right? Like, yeah, those are not guaranteed at all. But they have like 4 of the top 12 picks. Like they are as loaded as you can be in the modern era roster-wise. And this is going to be a big season for Sarkisian. You know, he has kind of ditched some of the reputation he had at Washington and USC, but like people want more at Texas. Like they want more than a semifinal. They want championships. He's going to have a top 5 roster in the sport. They need to be a top 5 team in the country in December and playing for a championship in January.
Well, we mentioned that they had 6 guys drafted and another 6 or 7 undrafted free agents. Mike, I know you got to go. We do appreciate your time. You got to start writing that tech story. Man, that sucks, by the way. But they're going to have 4, maybe 5 first-round picks next year. They have that kind of talent that they have coming back. Cam Coleman, Arch Manning. My God, I know I'm missing somebody. They will have a chunk of the linebacker, Colin Simmons.
They have them at the positions. Like if you asked a college coach, like where you get 5 positions to have an elite player, pick those 5 positions. They'd pick quarterback, wide receiver, left tackle, defensive end, and in the secondary. And they have elite players at all of those spots. Like they have built this thing like an NFL roster, and now it's whether Sark can get consistency out of this group. And if Will Muschamp is the defensive coordinator he thinks he is.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time, Mike. Really do. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, TexasFootball.com with us on 365 Sports. This is the Smoke Show with Craig Smoke. He's the one with the runny nose because of allergies, and I'm the one with, the pink shirt. Hope you're having a great day. Back in a moment, we'll hear from Lauren Beasley. She is next on Arkansas. And remember the trickle-down effect of what NIL or the House settlement, what it might mean to the sports that don't have revenue flying through the front door. That and more. This is 365 Sports. And North Star Funding Partners. Have you heard of the new IRA, Insured Retirement Advantage? The Insured Retirement Advantage is a smarter way for you to achieve what you need when it comes to savings and retirement. and you go, oh my God, is it too late? No, it's never too late. And they will help you get that done. Create a supplemental tax-free income stream. Maintain liquidity for other investments or business needs, and protect your family. And in the long term, transfer wealth efficiently. It's a unique solution for clients who are financially strong. Also, make a minimum of $150,000 a year, but haven't yet achieved savings and the retirement goals that you have and what you need. Call 623-256-6902. I'm not big in the numbers. I'll say it again because we need to put it up, in fact, on the screen like we do QC Kinetics. That's on me to do. 623-256-6902. Here's it makes it easier. NorthstarFundingPartners.com, and tell them Smokey and the Smoke Show sent you. It's time to compete against yourself. Finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed. World-class tennis facility and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Here we go. There's 365 Sports, the Smoke Show. Craig Smoke, David Smoke, we do appreciate your time. Lauren Beasley joins us. She works for USA Today, has covered a lot of, by the way, even South Carolina athletics. But I noticed something she wrote after the story about Arkansas men's and women's tennis. It's on its way out the door, which has been a concern about what does this race with the NIL and sports like football and men's basketball and the House settlement, what does it mean for a lot of other sports? She joins us now, Lauren Beasley on 365 Sports and the Smoke Show. Lauren, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. So when you first heard the story about Arkansas with men's and women's tennis, there's a lot of much smaller schools that have both men's and women's tennis. What first went through your mind?
I was surprised it was a P4 program that was cutting it. I was kind of mad at first because, you have the college experience where, you have all the sports available for kids to go to from high school to college. You have, everything from gymnastics to tennis. And so it was interesting seeing that it was Arkansas that was cutting both of their programs.
And the reaction around the country has been, this is what we were worried about. And some others have dropped sports, like Iowa State dropped their sport. And then they've added wrestling now for men and women's, the women's wrestling. And so we see some that are adding, but not many are. Is there an answer to keep this from happening, in your opinion?
Somebody asked me that the other day, and that's a great question. It's, it wasn't like a budget cut. So, and I mean, let's be honest, tennis is not a revenue making sport. There's no ticket demand, the broadcast, minimum sponsorships. There was only one school, Texas A&M, broke $20,000 budget. Ticket sales. And that was the only school. So, but they could, in my opinion, I think that for tennis programs, I'm sure that if they knew that they were going to cut them, there was, donors that would come forward and try to help out the program. They could do a regional program where they have training facilities where different schools, like, in the Southeast, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, could have like a regional place where they could train also. I think there's a lot of places where they could raise money. I know that the Clemson golf team, they raise money by having Dabo come and speak, and they have ticket sales for that event. And so that raises the money to fund the golf team. I think there was a lot of things they could have done to keep it, but I don't think it was something that they were doing to cut the budget at all. I think they just needed that money to be reallocated towards the football program.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're not going to spend that. That's just going to go to a wide receiver now at this point
right.
Instead. So with that in mind, and not to be callous, but how much of the reaction that you've seen to your story and to just the general discussion is people going, so what? It's tennis. Like we care more about football and basketball, and that's the way that it is. So yeah, it sucks, but got to do what you got to do here.
Almost every reaction has been that. It's like, oh, it's just tennis. I think somebody referred to them as after school activities. So, and it's tennis, gymnastics. A lot of people were, I even brought up, it's an Olympic pipeline. So, the tennis and sports like that don't have the NFL or the NBA. There's no after college pipeline that they go to the pros. So you're either elite enough to make it to the Olympics at a young age, or the college route is the way. It's not the only way, but it's the most productive way to get to Olympics. And there was, a lot of reactions that were like, well, like, we don't care about the Olympics. Like, why does that matter? And, it's 75% of U.S. Olympic athletes come from collegiate programs. So it is a big deal if you start cutting programs like that, starting with Arkansas, and we're going to see it more. I mean, let's be real. And it's just the downfall long term. I think we'll start seeing more and more of it. But the reactions from everybody is pretty much that it was, oh, it's just tennis, and I get that, because football, basketball, especially men's basketball, that's the juggernaut football, programs when it comes to athletics. But there's still people that go to college because they want to play tennis or gymnastics. I have friends who have kids who want to go to certain schools because of gymnastics, and if they cut those programs, they're going to try to go to a different school that has what they're looking for.
Even back in the days when this is after COVID, when a lot of different rules and a lot of things changed in athletics, from the transfer portal to NIL, et cetera, what I kept saying, and maybe it's popped up a couple of times, maybe in Congress, although you never know if anything ever gets done, was that what's the thing that might eventually get everybody's attention is the fact that they start dropping women's sports in Title IX because of the equal amount of scholarships. I think everyone still has to abide by that, but you wonder if it starts to affect that a little bit, Lauren, if that's something that, like, oh, wait a minute, now we've got to do something a little bit different about it.
Yeah, I would think so. I think that because they cut the men and the women's, it's even across the board, but there's a lot of schools that don't have, I can't think of off the top of my head. I know there's a couple that has a women's tennis team, but not a men's tennis team.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if they cut that, I think the narrative would change, and there would be a lot of backlash and especially with the Title IX. And they would want to keep that and try to figure out how to to fund it. And I think if they cut women's sports, especially to go, like with Arkansas, that money is definitely being allocated towards football. It's going to raise a lot of voices.
Matt Brown, I'm not sure if you know Matt. He writes a newsletter called Extra Points, and he's brilliant at getting all the information, asking for the Freedom of Information Acts, whatever. He wrote about this today. Arkansas tennis reported $2.3 million in total expenses for the men's and the women's tennis programs. They had just a little bit more the year before. However, they are 31st in the country for men's and women's tennis budget. 31st isn't bad if you look at 131 football, whatever. But they're next to the last within the SEC.
Right.
So even though they're 31st in the country with tennis budget for men's and women's tennis, they are next to the last in the SEC. So there are some schools spending more than them. And you just wonder where this eventually ends. Has anybody given you an idea of what they can do about this, or is there anything they can do about this? Not Arkansas. That ship has sailed.
Right. I don't know what they could do about it going forward, but I feel like it's definitely raised some questions about what to do about it going forward with other programs. Because, like I said, I've covered South Carolina, so I see their social media and they're always promoting the track and field team and the tennis team. And I don't know what their numbers are specifically, but the promotion that they have for it, it's as much as the women's basketball team or anything else. I mean, they definitely, push it. So it's just, like I said, I feel like we'll see it more and more as these budgets get higher and higher. I did see part of what you were talking about from that post, and I think what they brought in was extremely low too. Their actually revenue with their student fees and everything was like the very bottom too. But it's also, like I said, no ticket sales. There's no merchandise for tennis. It's just the brutal honesty about tennis is that it's just not a revenue making sport. And the only real revenue comes from the camps that they have. So, I don't know if they could have more exposure for the camps that they have, or smaller donations, fundraisers.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And I believe we'll see more and more of this as it goes by. One last, you said, and you do, this is Lauren Beasley, she covered for the USA Today, also covers South Carolina. So let me get this in. A year ago at this time, expectations for the Gamecocks in football were huge because they had that late season surge. In fact, there was even discussion, they weren't going to get in, that maybe they could be a part of the playoff. It didn't happen. Last year, they took a step back. Lenora Sellers, of course, a big-time talent. Beamer, the coach. How disappointing was last year, and are those expectations back again for this year?
It's hard. 2024 was a 9-4 season. Last year was 4-8. And so, yeah, going into it last year, everybody was, came off the college playoff conversation. I didn't think that was realistic, but it was fun to discuss. So it was hype. And we have South Carolina has one of the hardest schedules in the SEC. And, mid-season, we're dealing with, losing. And then the Texas A&M game, I think, was about the time I didn't want to watch any more Carolina football. When you blow a 27-point lead at halftime, that's pretty brutal to lose. And we gave Texas A&M a record-breaking, game. It was like the greatest deficit they had come back. I think a lot of people are very skeptical going into the season this year. There was a lot of what are we getting out of this last year, but from the fans. But they sell out every single game. And I actually wrote an article about this also. They sell out every single home game, but you're not getting the return, in my opinion, that for a less than mediocre football team last year. And this is Beamer's 6th year. He's had 2 good years, and the rest of it's just been kind of coasting by. So at what point do the fans not literally just demand more? Like, we're not coming to the games, because they did it with basketball and they've done it with baseball until they fired the head coach. The stands were empty. We're not coming. We're not putting in money. We're not, donating, because we're not getting anything out of it. So I will say, I think for the 2026 season, Beamer has about 4 or 5 games before they want his head on a stick.
Lauren, we appreciate it. Keep up the good work with USA Today. Thanks for reaching back out to me when I contacted you. Appreciate your column and also your insight and knowledge. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
Lauren Beasley, USA Today, with us on the Arkansas men's and women's tennis program on its way out. And you wonder, you probably, although Iowa State, remember, dropped a women's sport, they brought one back. They added one to replace it with women's wrestling, with Jamie Pollard, the AD, with the Cyclones. When we come back, a couple of notes that we'll get to. We do have tomorrow's could be a huge day. Maybe it's just a hearing and nothing happens. But arbitration between the CSC and Nebraska Athletics, which is very interesting, and a nugget about Baylor men's basketball picking up a huge commitment after his brother committed earlier. And then another note or two about Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech, and the gambling investigation. This is 365 Sports. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The graph about the schools and conferences who had so many numbers of players drafted, but where they were prior to that conference or that program. Iowa Western Community College had 5 players who started at that program drafted, and their 5 players eventually drafted over the weekend more than all but 19 Power 4 schools. Iowa Community College, I think Iowa Western Community College, who won the national championship in football, beat my alma mater, Tyler Junior College, in the national championship game. So, good.
Yeah, good for them. I don't really think about the I'm sorry. I don't really think about the community college stuff too much, but good for Iowa Western. I think you said it right.
Iowa Western Community College.
Yeah. Well, good for them. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, couple other notes. The Louisiana Tech Conference USA, we kind of knew this was headed towards an ending. And finally, last Friday, we had the note that they had been given La Tech the okay from the board, the Louisiana board, to pay the money to get out of the Conference USA, get into the Sun Belt. That is now official. Conference USA and La Tech pleased to have reached a positive resolution with Louisiana Tech that fully acknowledges our governing documents. We look forward to continued success and impact in the national landscape driven by the collective strength and shared vision of our 10-member institutions. And yes, you could write that statement when you get a check for $8 million, which is what they had to pay. And Ryan Ivey, the AD, and I have gone back and forth. He used to be at SFA. Now that this is official, hopefully we can get him on and discuss this move.
Yeah, I mean, this was to be expected. So, I mean, this is the ink drying on the process that we already knew was going this direction. But I'm sure it's a nice place to be in to have that just all settled now and behind you if you're La Tech, and you've got the opportunity to go into a fun league there in the Sun Belt, reunite with some geographical rivals and teams in Louisiana. And I think it's a good spot for them. And I think that's one of those, I guess, I'm going to say smaller leagues, but I guess smaller leagues. I don't want to make it sound negative, but one that actually still makes a lot of sense and has some fun storylines and some fun schools with proximities to each other that make a lot of sense. So I enjoy the Sun Belt, and I think they're an addition that is good, and one that I'm sure they're just, like I said, happy to have over with an official now.
Here's a note on the Brendan Sorsby story. We brought that up to start the show. We've talked about it quite a bit, even with our guest, about he's now under investigation for gambling dating back to even when he was a player on the roster at Indiana. And perhaps, I guess, the report saying that he even bet on Indiana, didn't play, doesn't matter, he bet. Then, of course, after that, it was Cincinnati and now Texas Tech. Pete Nako's a really nice, it's a comment that gives you an idea with the transfer portal no longer in the spring. A suspension, a tough position for Texas Tech. No spring portal, no ghost transfers. And now, what do? They have Will Hammond. He's trying to get healthy. They have the transfer from Tulsa as well. But things have changed a little bit where you could have dipped in or maybe been able to contact somebody. But then the tampering rules are going to be more stiff. And so there's not that option for them to do that.
I mean, they do that. They have to suspend Joey McGuire for part of the season or face some pretty extreme consequences. So it doesn't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze there. And you know what? Good. I don't root for Tech to be punished here. It's not their fault. Brendan Sorsby had this issue that arose. But, I mean, I guess to some extent it could be that they didn't have an idea about it, or I don't know. But point is, I'm not trying to place blame on them. I'm trying to say that they shouldn't be able to just go turn around and get a brand new quarterback. They shouldn't be able to do that. I think that would be awful for the game if you have a big wild card like this and you say, all right, well, I know spring ball's over for everybody, but we're just going to go jump and go grab La Tech's quarterback. I just think that would be, while convenient for them, just awful if that's the way the game is ran, is you can have something like this happen and then turn around and just go take it and put it off on somebody else to now have to scramble because your guy got in trouble. I don't think that's the way it should be. So I'm glad that it's not that way. And I don't know what they're doing. I'm sure they're probably meeting right now or met earlier today and got all together as a staff to try to figure out. But I mean, they got multiple quarterbacks on the roster. So yeah, Kirk Francis, you got him for a reason. Lloyd Jones, I know he's young, but get those two in the mix and have them just play for your first few games. And it's not ideal, but life's not fair. Yep. So that's all there is to it. But yeah, you should absolutely not be allowed to just turn around and go grab the quarterback from Penn State here in April 27th. I'm not for that at all. So they'll just have to be creative and hope that Will Hammond can get back sooner than expected. And I guess there's always the chance this doesn't go the way we think, but I mean, he's clearly got bets all over the place, and the pro sports stuff doesn't matter as much, although it's illegal for him. But certainly the dagger is the betting on your own team. That's the one that seems like it's going to be really hard to come back from for him. But Yeah, it's not a fun place to be for a Texas Tech fan today, but they've got some options.
Yeah, Lloyd Jones III, the young man from Hitchcock, Texas, really highly thought of quarterback, and then the transfer from out of Tulsa. Nebraska, Rez, if you don't mind this one, from Ross Dellinger, the Nebraska College Sports Commission, they're the ones that are supposed to look at NIL deals. And they came back after there was concerns from the NCAA that they weren't getting things passed. They weren't getting NIL deals through. And then they fired back a statement saying that, yeah, no, we've gotten a lot of them through as far as yes or no. And then also within a week when they get it. Now, there's hundreds of these deals. Tomorrow, Nebraska, which is a part of that deal with Playfly, this is important here, a hearing scheduled for tomorrow. 18 Nebraska football players represented by Hush Blackwell and supported by the school itself will argue that $1 million plus in rejected NIL deals should be permitted. I don't have all the details on how much for each player, but it's on hold. And in fact, it probably might be leaning towards it's not going to work. So Ross Dellinger with yet another story, and this has been a couple of weeks. They will have a hearing on arbitration tomorrow. And I don't know how long an arbitration hearing, does it happen that day? Do they get a call in 2 or 3 days? I don't know, but that's happening tomorrow. And some in sports are saying that this thing here is a big deal because of the renewed commitment from Playfly and Learfield and some of these marketing companies that broadcast games and also merchandise within a university.
Yeah, I've seen where this is going to be a pretty big ruling because of what it allow or not allow as far as that goes. But even if they lose, I've seen it pointed out elsewhere, they just go to the attorney general, to the governor, and try to see what they can do from the state route. And that's why, again, like none of this ever gets really done, is that you just say, oh, well, we lose this, we'll just go to our local government and see what they can do here. So I don't know how realistic of an option that is for Nebraska. I'm not sure if it's an option they'll need to exhaust. I don't know. I'm not as interested in this as I am about transfers and eligibility. That's more of the stuff that I'm interested in as far as the legal part of it goes. But yeah, there's entities involved in college football trying to help work around the rules of college football and college sports. Like, no, our deal shouldn't count on the cap, or our deal shouldn't. It's all the people that want rules who don't ever follow them themselves, basically. Is another example of that, I think, in a lot of ways. And how can we bend them? How can we move the goalpost a different direction? And so now that's what we're seeing here with these separate, or what they feel should be separate deals through those outlets. So yeah, I don't know if that's valid or not. I haven't looked enough into the story to feel like a strong opinion one way or the other, but it's funny to see the companies involved themselves also trying to find ways to get around what everybody had originally tried to basically agree on.
Yep.
But I don't know why it's so chaotic. I don't know.
Well, and this is money, by the way, that would normally have been going to the university for some sort of marketing agreement, broadcast agreement, and now some of that is being directed towards student athletes. So we'll see what the hearing, what comes out of it. Also, finally, remember when Damon Williams at Washington tried to transfer, and then his agent, was it Darren Heitner? I believe it might have been, who said, no, he's fine. He's going to stay at Washington. Here's a change the Big Ten is suggesting. This just came down this afternoon. Part of the Big Ten's revenue share agreement, you'll remember, Washington's Damon Williams eventually stayed in that school. Here's what they are suggesting. At the request of the Big Ten Conference, the board unanimously approved and adopted a narrow change in rules for the notification of transfer process, allowing schools to decline to enter a student athlete into the portal only if the student athlete agreed to release the school from that requirement as part of the valid settlement-related benefits agreement with the school. The board also introduced a proposal that would direct the infractions process to presume violations occurred in cases of impermissible contact with transfer students. If the proposal is adopted by the Division I cabinet in June, schools suspected of tampering with student athletes prior to their entry, which is that ghost transfer, would need to demonstrate the violation did not occur to avoid penalties. So yet another college football, college athletics, NCAA. They are gaining steam on that 5 years of eligibility. That seems to be in a more positive direction. Everything else, my God, who knows what might happen. All right, Rez, let's spin the wheel. What's one song or artist that's always in your summer rotation?
I don't know that I have like a set summer rotation necessarily, but I always go back to the Beatles at really any time, but especially just more happy-go-lucky, some of their stuff. And just, I mean, it's classic, incredible music that, if I want to get in a good mood or I want to like really feel any kind of a way, there's a Beatles record or album for that. But I'd say there's a few artists that I always go back to, but certainly the Beatles are very high at the top of that list.
I would think that I love Elton John no matter what month, what spring, whatever. But Journey is still something that if I just want to kind of feel good, if I'm headed to go play golf and I want to hear a couple of songs or whatever, driving on any kind of a trip, I want to get Journey and put that on my Apple playlist and put it on iPhone, etc., and sail down the highway. Here we go now with a couple of quizzes today. Did not have them on Thursday and Friday, so Andrews had too much time to come up with what might be more difficult questions. Trivia. On the final day of the 1941 season, Ted Williams was hitting .399 55. He played a doubleheader. Instead of sitting and finished at 406, last one to hit 400. Who's the only player to come within 10% or no, 0.01% of the 400 ever since? I know the answer to this.
Great. What's the answer?
I want to say George Brett hit 390. Gwynn made a run at it too, but I want to think, God dang it, Tony Gwynn was a hitting machine. I'm going to say George Brett.
I don't have any other opinion on this that's strong enough to overrule how much you jumped out there and said you knew this. So let's go with George Brett.
God dang it. I knew it as soon as I did not look at the list. I saw George Brett. George Brett, I think, hit like 390, 388. And there you are with Tony Gwynn hitting 394. I jumped the gun. And I just might have sent us into a long losing streak because I was not paying enough attention. 6 for 8, Ted Williams on that final day remains the gold standard. Last player in Major League Baseball to hit over 400. The splendid splinter, and Tony Gwynn could slap the ball in every direction he wanted to. And so I'm wrong, dead wrong. I take both losses for Craig and me on that one for being a little bit overmodulated. To the next one. 1983, Nolan Ryan broke a pitching record on this day that had stood for 56 years. Whose career strikeout record did he surpass?
Well, it wasn't Randy Johnson, obviously. Nope. I don't remember.
It wasn't Carlton.
Yeah. So
it wasn't Cy Young.
Okay. Well, it was Walter Johnson.
Walter Johnson. Cy Young, of course, 511 wins in his career. I think I'm getting a little bit antsy. I'm Walter Johnson. Yeah, go. Thank God. Nolan Ryan fanned Brad Mills to reach 3,509 strikeouts, moving past the big train. Walter Johnson pitched for the Senators. The Ryan Express eventually ended with a staggering 5,714 strikeouts. Dominance in perspective. A modern pitcher would need to average 250 strikeouts for 22 consecutive years to match him. He finished with 839 more than a guy that could throw some heat and kill a bird when he did it one time in Randy Johnson, the lefty, for a lot of different teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the Nolan strikeout's pretty incredible, Mark. And reading some of that perspective there is, he was just a machine, man. And one of a kind, certainly. Glad the Rangers got the Nolan curse off their backs, but glad that you also got to redeem yourself a little bit here after that first miss. But nailed it, Walter Johnson. Okay, so learned something new today.
All right, let's go to the poll results. This is from earlier in the show, a couple of them. One of them, what should Diego Pavia's job be next? And I saw the the meme or whatever you want to call it with being a Raising Cane's manager. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. Not sure he wants to, but I thought, play some pretty good football. I don't think it's going to be in the NFL behind Lamar Jackson or with Baltimore, even though we got the invite. I thought about go to the UFL and he'd get a lot of attention, maybe give that league a little boost.
I mean, they thought the same thing about his idol, Johnny Manziel, and that petered out pretty quickly. I don't know that he would be as untrustable or unreliable as Johnny was back then, but I think there's probably people that care about the spring league if it's in your town or if you just love football and love some of the guys involved. But I mean, it just feels like it never registers the way that they want it to, no matter how many attempts, no matter how many different versions, no matter how many different ways they try to do it. Just non-NFL, non-college football, just non-high school football does not register in this country. So yeah, he could go to the UFL and give them a little temporary amount of hype, but I don't think it would last very long. The next big heel, and for anybody who's joining us, I don't typically sound this awful. I'm struggling with allergies, man. So
people, I think, know. I think they can tell. You don't have to apologize. It happens.
Okay, I'm just telling people out there. So yeah, I'm struggling today. But the next big heel, he's too small, and there's already enough B-list, C-list celebrities that cross over. I mean, Pat McAfee just got ran out of wrestling, basically. I'd much rather watch him not be a heel, but much rather watch him than Diego Pavia come in and try to be a bad guy. I have absolutely no interest in that. I've already got Logan Paul. I've had Pat McAfee. There's a couple others here and there. There's no need for Diego Pavia, and he would just be so tiny. He would be so tiny. And then Lamar's backup, I don't think that'll be the case. He got a mini camp tryout, so I guess I'm going Cane's manager. But if he wants to keep playing football, then I'm sure there will be some people interested. And I did find it kind of interesting just how he fell out, and then sort of the response from people laughing at his lack of getting drafted and the party that he had set up and all those things, to then people feeling sorry for him pretty quickly. So yeah, he's a divisive guy. I'm sure he'll be around in some form. I'd probably be some streaming on Kick, getting into crap. I could totally see that avenue for him before I see these other four.
Shahan Jayarajan will join us tomorrow on many things college football, but also a story he wrote about Diego Pavia and not being drafted. One more poll result. So which brand needs a full comeback?
I mean, I got Barnes & Noble. I don't need Borders. Radio Shack, that didn't really do anything for me. Never did, even when it was around, even though I was in radio. I just never spent much time there. Blockbuster, I have a lot of fond memories, as do I, with Toys R Us. But given them a little bit older now, I'd say Blockbuster, best of all worlds. And wouldn't be so bad to go and rent movies. It's nice to have on display, like right as soon as you want it nowadays, but I don't know. It's just not the same as going and actually getting physical copies and kind of looking around and browsing and doing that. That was a lot of fun back in the day. But yeah, it's a lot easier now, obviously.
I never went inside of Borders. I went to Blockbuster all the time. I've been in Radio Shack quite a bit. But the one I did this for children, even though you have Amazon and all of these other stores, Toys R Us is something that even to this day, at almost 67 years old, I have fond memories of going in there with mom and dad, my brothers and sister, walking down the aisles, mom and dad asking us what we like, and we just weren't paying attention, especially me, and they were putting things underneath like a blanket, not to steal it, but so we would not see the various toys they were buying us for Christmas. So that's a great memory. So I wish Toys R Us was back, and I know none of them probably ever will be. And then this video, I think this is insane. It is unbelievable. Baylor has an acrobatic and tumbling program that's won 11 consecutive NCAA national championships. Here is one of the events that is in ice skating. There's certain jumps or whatever that no one's ever done. Rez, would you mind playing the video of this? All right, that looks normal. Okay, handstand. That's pretty awesome. And then my groin muscle is about to tear. Watch this right here. So that's been one of the 11. Next year, I believe the NCAA is cinching acrobatic and tumbling. That's called an acro-side element. Mo Arthur, Michaela Vasquez, and Becca Moore are a part of that for Felicia Mulkey, who's won a bucket load of national titles in her career.
Yeah, congrats to Baylor on more success in A&T, and to have that as an NCAA sport will be massive, so long as they can keep the party rolling along. But I think actually one of their alumni, Bailey Humphrey, she goes by a different name. I don't know what her name is now. She's just made her NXT debut for WWE just about a week ago. So interested to see where that career takes her. But yeah, she was doing A&T not that long ago, and it's a really interesting sport, and they're super viral on social media with stunts like that. So yeah, they've garnered a pretty big following, and I don't know how they do all that without arms and legs breaking off. It's pretty crazy.
Pretty impressive. I went to one a long time ago when it first started. Julie Bennett asked me to come watch it. I watched it. It was a great event and enjoyed it. Rez, thank you, sir. Also to Garrett Ross and Andrew Valade. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to you. 365 Sports, the Smoke Show with Craig Smoke and David Smoke. We'll be back tomorrow at 3. Have a great night and have a great evening too.